Through the prayers of Holy Fathers, through Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. Good evening. This is, for those who are new here, this is Father Joseph Swaden. I've worked in Orthodox apologetics since 1998. I'm the founder of NFT, True Orthodox and Ecumenical News. We've been, since 2004, we've been in the apologetic space on Facebook since 2016 and on YouTube since 2018. If you appreciate what we do here, please like and subscribe. Okay, today we do our live Q&A session where you can get your questions answered live, as well as member-requested video reviews. So let's get started. As always, if you want to jump on the stream to ask a question or make a comment, just click the link at the top of the chat. I will be taking super chats from the YouTube chat. If you want your question or comment without super chatting, I'll answer, but you might miss it if I don't put it up. Okay, Bishop Enoch is here. Benedicite, Master Bless.
God bless.
Okay, so
what are we talking about?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of things that we're going to probably be talking about, but I do want to get through the comments that come in at the beginning. And then basically, of course, it's an open Q&A. I did want to review an interesting video by a Protestant, again, criticizing Orthodoxy in general, and it's usually the things we criticize the world Orthodox for. So I wanted to look at that video. I thought it would be interesting. And of course, the elephant in the room is the... Okay, well, first off, we just got a super chat from Sunrise. Thank you. I will get to everyone's chats, by the way, but super chats come first. So thank you for supporting the stream. It says, Father, I just wanted to say something regarding Friday's stream. It was great to see everyone in the chat who normally watches your streams. I feel like it was a good turnout and nice to see. Very true. I did see that afterwards. Father Antonius, glorify him. And basically, I didn't see the comments. In general, when I'm doing discussions or debates, etc., I don't look at the comments because I know that can be distracting, and then I lose my place and my focus. So definitely, let's get through. Father Deacon Pacomio says, "Good evening, Father Joseph. Your blessing. Will any secret guests show up tonight? Stay tuned." No idea. We'll find out. Anyone can call in live on these streams just by clicking the link at the top of the chat. Zelotes, your blessings, Father Joseph. Vladik, if you want to bless everyone in the chat, basically, Sunrise, ask for blessing. Heads up, I don't recommend engaging Cal Q or Jason. They just want to argue, and it's a waste of time. Well, we've seen both of them in our chat box. Calling it chat box. Now everyone was calling it a chat box. It's a comment section, but now I'm saying chat box. Anyway, the point is that they do. I know they want to argue, and they're doing it in bad faith. But I'd rather engage them than not, expose them than not. Let me see here. Harry Father Bacomia says, "I wonder if that Jason was once the deacon in the Avlona Synod. Not to my knowledge." Matthew Beck and Father bless. Father Antonius, give a blessing for everyone here. Nikolai Bauman says, "I was amazed at how easy Father John let Father Hears just make his case for him for what felt like a half an hour in your debate over the weekend." This is going to be one of those disputed things. The question of equal time, who got the most speaking time, etc. I honestly, I'd love to see a count. I am curious to see how that would go. Obviously, Reader John says, I wish I would have been on that panel. Father Boniface says, Benedicite, Benedicite. Nicholas asks for a blessing of Lika, and
God bless. I gotta go in 10 minutes, so I'm just letting you know.
No problem. And then let's see here. Nick says, Father John, you debated has always been shady, even when Rocor was true Orthodox. I feel uncomfortable with I will say a lot of the things Father John said in that discussion Friday were shocking. I think even Patrick.
Well, I haven't really watched it. So what did he say that was shocking? What's the
he kind of minimized what happened with Sergianism, and he kind of minimized ecumenism, and these are things that normally he kind of, well, not so much Sergianism but ecumenism, he normally speaks pretty strongly against. So it was more a surprise than anything else.
Don't you remember you didn't you
I
tell
just said
me?
You gotta go watch it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I gotta. Do you remember years ago you told me that when you had been, I think maybe originally a catechumen in Rocor in the late '90s or something, and you knew a priest, and he was really big against ecumenism, and he was really much against the Sergianism, and then years later you talked to him and he said something like he just woke up one day and he's like, I don't care about this anymore. Do you remember something like that?
I remember something like that, but I don't remember who it was. I'd have to think on that for a while. But yeah, there was a priest like that.
I remember you told me about that. Like sometimes that happens, like there's a demonic attack where suddenly they just give up. Yeah. People give up.
Well, Jeremy, now he says it was interesting to hear Father John say Rocor was more liberal in the 50s than today. I found that shocking. What do you think about that, Father Joseph? I think it's a misrepresentation of the history. He, of course, he referenced something that we've talked about on the show before, which is when Archbishop Vitali was made. It was done in an Anglican cathedral that was lent out to them.
They owned the church. It was a Rocor church, though.
Okay. It was, so they basically kind of rented the church or rented the space.
And they invited the Anglican bishop investments to stand on the Solea.
Yeah. Which is bad, don't get me wrong, but you can't compare it to what is going on today for a number of reasons. First off, at that time when that happened, there were still a number of Orthodox, including a number of Russians, who thought of Anglicans as kind of quasi-Orthodox. This was by design. The Anglicans presented it this way, even if it wasn't necessarily true, and they were certainly extending their kindness and renting out a church for the Rocor to use. But that's not the same thing as what is happening now in ecumenical celebrations. Matsuka Maria says Christ is born. So in any case, just let me see, glorify him. And so, yeah, it was Friday was kind of crazy. I'm still dealing with the fallout. The number of comments just on my broadcast of the stream is in the dozens, and many more on the original stream, and they keep coming in. Let me see here. Ortho Pirate says he reframed Father Swaden's arguments in his 5-minute opening, and the entire attack of your position went from there. Went from an issue of parallel hierarchy caused by heresy to the calendar issue. Yeah, and I think that is problematic, but I think we dealt with it as well as we could. I mean, we both had the freedom to do opening statements, and I knew he wasn't going to just take that sitting down. Evangelo says, greetings, Bishop Enoch. What are your thoughts about breaking communion for reasons other than heresy? There are several examples of it in history, but Father Whiteford insisted it's banned by Canon 14 of the First Second Synod.
Wouldn't it be Canon 15? But Canon 14 also mentions stuff too.
Yeah, but, it doesn't have the exclusion.
So yes, Canon 15 only really deals, frankly, in a technical sense, with breaking communion within a local church jurisdiction hierarchy. It does not deal with how equal sister churches deal with each other. It does not regulate that. It does not say a patriarch can't break with another patriarch or something like that because of non-doctrinal issues. For example, the famous incident everybody might remember was during the time of St. John Chrysostom. And when they had the two fake deposition synods, like, the Synod of the Oak and things, which was a pseudo deposition.
Right.
And after that happened, the Western Orthodox bishops broke communion, even admittedly over a non-doctrinal issue, with all the bishops who deposed St. John. And then after St. John died in exile, all of the Western bishops broke communion with everybody in the East who did not publicly break communion with those who did not break communion with those who did the deposition, which resulted in like 7 or 8 years. There was no communion between the Orthodox West and the Orthodox East. And it only was resolved. And in fact, it was, if you read the dialogue on the life of St. John Chrysostom by Palladius, I think, he talks about that the people who deposed St. John Chrysostom, they did a lot of terrible things. And, that was why, like, the church in the West, Orthodoxy in the West, had nothing to do with them. And it was only what happened is around 415 or 416, I believe, the Patriarch of Constantinople, maybe his name I can't remember at the time, agreed to put the name of St. John Chrysostom on the diptychs for the dead. And then the Patriarch of Antioch did that. And
Right.
St. Kirill was like really against it for about a year, and then finally he consented to do it. Because remember, St. Kirill's uncle had ran the Sin of the Yoke. All right. So that's an example of, breaching communion over a non-doctrine issue. Another issue would be that if you're a metropolitan, your first hierarch goes into schism. Obviously, that has the same, contours and things like that. So that's my thoughts. I think you can find circumstances for it and such. So, but they're not as. So anyway.
Yeah, I hope that answers the question, Evangelos. Again, I'll be taking super chats from the YouTube chat. If you want your question or comment without super chatting, I'll answer, but you might miss it if I don't put it up.
One more point. So, but Palladius mentions that when St. John Chrysostom was about to go into exile, I believe, either his first or second time, he did tell the bishops, like there's these 40 bishops who was his disciples. He did say that, do not create a schism on my account unless they tell you to anathematize me. Then, break communion with those people. Then you can do it, because then they're going to make you lie, and you cannot lie. And they're the ones causing this. They're the ones causing the schism. And he says, don't leave your churches, but if they exile you, you're not the one leaving. They're pushing you out. So.
Correct. Okay, and now I see the next question we have, let me see here, is from Jeremy. And he says, can you address the argument that it's not fair to have you defend true orthodoxy because you're, quote, not part of the main GOC synod, but rather part of a splinter Vagante group with very questionable credentials? In the first place, I will just say this. First off, I do not believe that my synod is Vagante or a splinter. So that is more of a personal attack, and I don't care. But the bigger question that you're asking is, why aren't other jurisdictions engaging in apologetical discussions? I can tell you from my own lonely personal experiences, we've been here for 6 years, and up until the past 2, there were blockades on our speaking. There were, block lists that were being done everywhere from Reddit to Twitter. It is not easy to be somebody who wants to argue the questions of world orthodoxy, and for the most part, I didn't, because of the fact that there's plenty of heretics to go around. There's Roman Catholics, there's Protestants, there's Muslims. So it was not forefront in my mind. But I think part of the reason why I'm here doing it is because I was already here doing it anyway. Does that mean there are no apologists in true orthodoxy outside of us and our synod? Absolutely not. And you're going to be seeing more of that soon. I can promise you that. Hold on one moment. Okay. And so again, if you want to jump on the stream to ask a question or make a comment, just click the link at the top of the chat. Let's get back to the questions. Let's see. I mean, being that they're unseen warfare, being that they're renting out that space, it makes sense. That's apples to oranges. It is. Beef Castle asks, Father Joseph, I've been attending a Roe Core church for about a year now. All of this is very confusing. Forgive me if this is incorrect, but are you saying the Roe Core churches are all moving towards ecumenism? This is where we get into this funny thing about definitions. I do realize that in the discussion we had Friday, Father John pointed to the ROAC's missionary presence in America of 3 parishes. That's not a realistic assessment of how many parishes, continuing Roe Core parishes exist. There's over 30. The majority of them are under Archbishop Andronic. Some of them are under Archbishop, what's his name in California? The Archbishop, I want to say Victor, but I know I'm wrong. Archbishop Vladimir, and some are under Metropolitan Ocofungo. So the idea that first off, when you say you're in a Roe Core church, do you mean Roe Core united with the Moscow Patriarchate? And if you do, I think that answers your own question, as the Moscow Patriarchate is heavily involved in ecumenism. Let me see. Nikolai Bauman asks, is an account of the Gallican liturgy by Saint Germain of Paris translated by Kirtland worth picking up?
Oh, I don't buy anything on Amazon by D.P. Curtin. Unless you want to, because you have to know that those are entirely machine translations. They're better after 2022 simply because machine translations are better. But I bought, in my innocence, what purported to be a translation of the 879 880 Council from like 2012 by So whoever this D.P. Curtin is, I'm not even sure if he's a real person, not just a computer composite.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be a 40 pages of it was a children's book about talking animals.
Wow.
And the last page was a horrific 2012 or 13 Google Translate of 3 canons from that council that are already translated in the Pedalian. So I wrote that's my one and only negative review on Amazon is there.
Well,
So I simply would not buy text from that. There is a translation of Saint Germanus' exposition of the Mass that you can find there. It's translated. I think maybe there's a text about the musical history of the early Middle Ages that's you can find on Amazon that has a translation of it. I can't remember the name of the book exactly, but it does exist, but with somebody else.
All right. And Taylor Harden says hello. And again, I just want to remind, support the channel. We at NFT need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at NFT.net, on GiveSendGo, or with crypto. In that case, let's continue on with the questions. Taylor Harden says hello. Lamont says, so can you go into the wait for a council solution / problem? The problem is very simple with the whole wait for a council line. In many cases, these are issues that have been debated, discussed, and handled for decades. Waiting for a council isn't going to make a difference because, in a sense, it's already been decided by parties involved. More importantly, if you say wait for a council when you know in conscience that your bishop is following heresy, you are therefore partaking in it or assisting in it to some degree by tolerating it. Let me see here. Hierarchy Comenius is at G, not sure what that is. Wicked Wally says the whole jerk argument really derailed the argument on Sergianism. There are ways to investigate doctrinal issues without coming across like sweeping up for mass murder. I agree. Unfortunately, that's very true. But I feel like until that gets addressed, and it has not been addressed because it's mostly been kind of it's their fault, not ours, but not taking responsibility corporately, that is a part of repentance, that is a necessary part of repentance that they're not doing. And I think they think they're going to get away with it, and I don't think they are.
And the head of the Moscow Patriarchate is still dedicating statues to Sergius.
Yeah, and referred to him as a hero on the date of his death.
That doesn't sound like repentance from Sergianism to me.
No, not at all. Nikolai Bauman says, Jeremy, I would say it's more of a result of the others and having different policies about clergy appearing on online shows and media. That's first off, that's actually nothing new. When the name worshiping controversy arose in ROAC in the early 2000s, Metropolitan Valentine did block all clergy from making public comments on the internet. This sort of thing does happen, so I completely understand. In the past year and a half, True Orthodoxy in general has gotten a lot more exposure and visibility, especially in places like YouTube. And it's okay for a bishop, you're a bishop, Lanika, you understand, administrating. You might not want to deal with a bunch of people on the internet suddenly having a dozen different requests.
But it doesn't explain why are there not educated lay people from other jurisdictions. I mean, it explains why there are not clergy from these other groups. Yes, but what about all these people who were, lay people that could do the job?
Well, and I think that that's something that we do need to address. And I feel kind of bad because I started as a lay apologist. And the point is, lay apologists have always been in the tradition of the church. I am a big fan of lay apologists. And so I hope to see lay apologists in my own future that I, helped kind of nurture and grow. And I think that's true of anyone who teaches apologetics, etc. Apologetics is not for the clergy. It's for everyone. We should all be able to account for our faith. What I think happened, though, somewhere along the way, is that especially in dealing with discussion, especially in dealing with world orthodoxy, there's this whole graded thing where it's like a priest apologist is suddenly much more important. Now, I will say that with, say, for example, the Monophysites, I will not debate anyone lower than their priests, but I have a very specific reason, which I will simply state here, which is those lay apologists tend to lie about public documents and say that they've been rejected by their bishops without any proof whatsoever. If a priest comes on and says that exact same thing, he will be liable to his synod and to the public for lying. So I want somebody who has that sort of accountability, because I hate to say this, but heretical lay people can just lie. That's what it comes down to. But lay apologists, I think, are great and a necessary part of the church. The first apologist, St. Justin, to my knowledge, was not a priest or deacon. Was he?
No, I don't believe he was.
No. So, and that's the first apologist in the church we have. Let's continue on. Let me see. So that's something to think about. Don't think apologetics is for just the clergy. It's really not. Hierarchical Pacomios, which GOC synod is the main one. That's looking at the EP. They're referring to the GOC Kalinikos, which is the largest. Evangelos Nikotopoulos says the Arsenites in the 13th century also broke communion over Patriarch Joseph pardoning the emperor, blinding John Lascaris. Absolutely true.
There's obviously the famous case of St. Studite everyone else brings up too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
although I thought it was interesting that that was brought up by Father John on Friday's discussion, where he tried to say that was the real motivation for putting in Canon 15 of the First Second Synod, not realizing it was lifting texts verbatim from the Third Ecumenical Council as well. Reader John says, could you please explain the concept of tangential communion? The concept of, basically, that's a situation where one person is in communion with two different bodies that may not be in communion with each other. And it may not be even official, or, it may be something that occurs just in the heat of battle. Hierarchical Paconia says, saying there remains a bit of papal language. If you mean the largest, okay, I understand. Really, I think the real question is, why aren't there more apologists doing stuff? There are, but they're going to become more visible, most likely this year. Jeremy is kind of arguing with Father Pacomios. I'll just kind of leave that one alone. Taylor says, Wicked Wally, the whole debate was derailed, especially when they randomly brought in here. Yeah, I mean, I was dumbfounded, to say the least. Jeremy, yes, I'm just more curious how someone could come to the conclusion that Father Joseph comes from a group with questionable credentials. Ad hominems of that sort have existed since time began and since debates began. Wasno with member chat says, I feel like there were too many questions to be addressed in that short amount of time, to be honest. Craig should have done maybe half of them, which would have given more time for speaking back and forth. It's a valid concern. Delta Compromise says, Father Peter hears, I choose you.
What does that mean?
It's a reference to Pokemon. You pick your fighter, Pikachu, I choose you. Taylor Harden, Father Antonius, the main synod talk is a whole can of worms. It really is, and it is not not worth it to have that discussion, at least not today. Or the pirate, LOL. Ponicle Swords, hello, Father Joseph. I enjoy your content. I am glad to hear that. We enjoy having you. Wally says, Taylor Harden, yes, I found it troubling when you try to brush off the 1920s, but even low-tier research still shows glaring endorsements for ecumenism by Germanus V in newcomers' faces. Absolutely. Orthodox traditionalists, truly the world Orthodox Lofton is having a meltdown.
Where are these comments? I don't see the comments you're talking about.
They're in the, well, I have a comment box. I don't know if you can see the live comments.
Don't worry about it. I'm not too worried.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Isaac says, extremely revealing for multiple reasons. Sunrise says, charitable and nuanced. Taylor Hardwick, well, yes, it was frustrating to watch. Imagine how Father Swain felt. Yeah, well. Oh, we got a super chat. Thank you so much from Evangelos Nikitopoulos. Thank you so much. $5 Canadian. Can you suggest a couple of MP bishops who denounced confessors to the Soviets? Father John seemed to suggest that didn't happen. Well, the most obvious one is one that they labeled as a saint. Luke of Simferopol, actually, there is evidence that he reported parishes to the Soviets.
There's another one that's I just was reading about. I'll search for it while.
Well, I mean, I've mentioned him before on this in this discussion. Patriarch Elia himself had Bishop Gennady Sakach arrested, so because he wouldn't do what he said he wanted to do. So, yeah, those are at least some obvious ones. Orthodox Traditionalist publication. He uses the word proceeding and other thesaurus words to produce his word salads. Let me see here. Hierarchy Pacomius. I like a good salad, especially one with spinach. I can almost feel it derailing. Jeremy says, doesn't the 1983 Rocor anathema against ecumenism hurt Father Peter Keir's case? I know it's not a council, but it's a definitive condemnation, right? Absolutely. And I will say, in the immediate succeeding years after the 1983 anathema, a lot of people were demonstrably concerned about what it meant. And, whether people were in the church while they were supporting ecumenical activities. OTP says, MP has still rejected St. Joseph of Petrograd and still calls him a schismatic, among other things. Yes, I know. He's my namesake. Hierarchy Pacomius says, Saint, quote-unquote, Luke of Crimea. Father Antonio, is perhaps a matter of courage to a certain degree. Jeremy says, that's an excellent point and a great challenge, Bishop Enoch, for lay people to grow in their apologetics and abilities to defend the faith and not leave it to clergy on the internet. Defending orthodoxy is not it is part of the job of the clergy, but it's really part of everyone's job to give a ready answer for Christ within us.
Yes, Manuel Lemonshevsky. That was another famous one that basically he if you look up the case of Metropolitan Manuel Lemonshevsky, who in the war was called Viktor Viktorovich Lemeshensky, was perhaps one of the most notorious MP bishops who betrayed basically every. He worked for the KGB with alacrity.
Let me see here. Victorious G says, I would love to get back in apologetics, and if I'm able to retire in a few years, I will get back into it full time. Oh, glory to God. Orthodox Traditions Publication says Kekish. I assume that is a reference to Subdeacon Daniel Kekish. He's not a deacon yet, even, I don't think. But the point is priests would be more accountable to public statements of their synods. And so what I'd want to see is one of these priests or bishops, doesn't matter to me, say, yes, we can formally say that our synod rejected these ecumenical statements. And I guarantee it's never going to happen. Unseen Warfare says, can you talk about how it is obligatory to break from a heretical hierarchy? That's something Father Peter stated and Craig spoke over when you tried to answer. I don't know if I have it here with me, in front of me, but I would highly recommend, once again, getting Subdeacon Nectarius' book, The History of Resistance, if only because all you have to do to see what you're supposed to do is look at church history. And over again, innovators and heretics were rejected by the faithful who left, and that would be how things had to land things.
So I'm confused. Did Father Peter say you don't have to break from a heretical hierarchy?
Correct. Yes.
All right.
So and I had a counter to that, but unfortunately, it kind of got cut off. Father Peter, interestingly, and I thought this was quite revealing. had actually stated that people could only be removed by a council. At which point I managed to ask him about the Roman Catholics. At which point he said, well, they were condemned by the Council of 879. I'm like, oh, so you can count previous canonical condemnations hundreds of years later. And then I think Patrick Craig put in his 2 cents on it. And I didn't get a chance to really hammer down Father Peter, because ultimately what he was saying was that if these were condemnations that were previously issued, and I did ask him directly about what about the new calendar in 1587, 1593, and he's like, oh, that was about the Meneon. Evangelos correctly pointed out, no, it was about the whole calendar, and he had the text for it. So, and I was like, that's not what they said. So that's not even what happened. Let me see here. Machine Lies says blessings. God bless you, Machine Lies. Let me see here. Nikolai Bauman says the lack of blessed and trained lay and minor orders who are set up to do apologetics is a fairly significant failure in the mission endeavor, but it was intentional. If you remember that,
the MP banned apologetics.
They banned. You'll see that in the letters of Father Boris Talentov, where he basically says they purposely banned apologetics because they didn't want atheists to get converted.
Now, do you remember? I don't know if you brought up Father Boris Talentov in that discussion.
No,
If you read him, and he was an MP priest from the 60s and 70s. He died in prison camp. They tortured him to death.
Yeah.
The thing about Father Boris Talentov is he pointed out that one of the things that made the Declaration of Sergius so horrific was that the Russian church was suffering, but it was actually about to break the Soviet government. I think he brings all this evidence that the Soviet government could not handle sort of like this resistance, the delegitimization of its entire regime that was happening.
The catacombics were winning.
In fact, people became more religious when the persecution happened. The churches filled up even more. And that was why they had to had to go through a figure like Sergius. They had to delegitimize the Orthodoxy to the Russian people by having it capitulate to Bolshevism.
Yep.
That's how people would perceive it.
And they were, honestly, the Soviets weren't even sure that gambit would work, but they lucked out on that, unfortunately. Let me see here. Nicholas says, thanks for saving me money on that book.
Well, I'll do not buy anything that whoever that guy is. I have looked. I've done a little bit of research, and he claims to have all these degrees in Latin and Greek and Syriac and Armenian. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I don't believe this guy has all those degrees. I don't even think he's gone through a 4-volume. I don't even think he's done I don't know what's happening.
Yeah,
just
don't buy from DP Curtin.
If Mr. Curtin comes on here and explains it, then
sure.
That's fine. But.
Okay. Reader John says, we definitely learned that they watched the live stream, apparently not that closely, or they would have known that I was doing most of the attacking of Father Peter. That's true. Reader John, I'm going to be honest with you. I heard people, my Matsushika, for example, and a couple of other people were watching the stream. They said they didn't really notice Father Peter suddenly getting indignant. I assume he did. That seems to be what they said. I was not even aware of it, but why I was getting blamed for it, I don't know. Father Methodius Chwastek says, greetings from your local True Orthodox priest who also moonlights as a ski lift operator. That's terrifying, and I'm afraid of heights, but I'm glad you like the job. I'm afraid of ski lifts. I'm afraid of anything that hangs me on strings, except for maybe elevators because of walls. And okay, anyway. OTP says, you never know that they never actually covered the WCC issue yet again. Whiteford blew it up for a second time with the same excuse that the EP is there, so the MP has to be. Oh, absolutely. And they didn't even want to touch the fact that effectively the WCC is like a sort of super church. They had no interest in discussing it. So it was about distraction. Father Pacomius, wishes Father Methodius nativity greetings. Sunrise. Isn't Father Peter here at St. Anthony's Monastery, which lets Elpidoporus come? Yes. From what I understand, he lives somewhere on the property in a house with his family, as I understand it.
Well, that's a conflict of interest then.
What do you mean?
Well, obviously, he's not going. Father Peter Harris can't openly attack the ecumenical page. He can't give a fair and unbiased position about the ecumenical patriarchate if his livelihood, his very ability to live, is dependent upon the good graces of the ecumenical patriarchate.
Absolutely.
I mean, that
Absolutely
to me,
true.
So I mean, I'm sorry for that situation, but remember, a lot of people in 429, 430 who were priests and had families also came out and attacked Nestorius when he taught heresy, and they lost their livelihoods too.
Yep. Let me see. So Jeremy asks, so are there any canons or saints that support Father Peter Here's assertions that we must wait for a council? Can you name all or at least some of the canons and saints that state the opposite? Well, we've already listed the case of the Nestorians. We've already listed the case of the Iconodules in the past. We can count Arianism and the reaction to Arianism. Once again, I highly recommend the book, The History of Resistance by Subdeacon Nectarios. It actually contains this. This is something, quite frankly, which saves me a lot of arguing. It's there in one book. Just, it's a handy reference, well-designed, worth it. As for canons or saints that support Father Peter, his assertion that we must wait for a council, the answer, at least to my knowledge, is no. I have never seen any case in church history where waiting it out for the heretics to repent works. That the compromise gives a little skull there. Deacon Pacomia says, St. Peter does say, and be ready always to give an answer to every man who asketh you a reason for the hope that is in which which is a plain statement to say we should all be ready to defend our faith. Absolutely. That has been my position. I think that's been the position of every apologist since time immemorial, bases everything we do on that quote. Wicked Wally says, Orthodox Spiritualist Publications. Also, let's not forget him saying, if it were up to me, we wouldn't be in the WCC. It is not an argument. Yeah, it isn't. It absolutely isn't. And OTP points out nuance, methodology, and contemporary elders. I'm afraid to say elders and Father Peter in the same sentence, or he might pop up like Beetlejuice, apparently. That's what I've learned, which he's welcome to. It's a live Q&A. But apparently that was a reason someone gave. You mentioned his name, and he had to show up. And I was like, really? I summoned him? Let's see here. Father Methodius, Chloroform, good evening, Father. Orthodox Spiritualist Publication. Wicked Wally said, I totally missed him saying that. I know, there were I feel like I have to re-listen because I remember in that discussion, and Matushka noticed it, where he said something to the effect of, but ecumenism isn't heretical or something like that. And I was like, what? And I remember being confused and her being confused. But I'd have to hear it again. That may be a misquote, but he said something equally bad about ecumenism that was just as shocking to me. I was really surprised. Sunrise says, Father Peter said old calendars won't be persecuted for their faith. Complete insanity. I guess you're just ignoring all the ones that were. And this is part of the reason why it's really hard to take this argument seriously when you say you're not going to be persecuted as a true Orthodox or as an old calendarist. You're just ignoring all the true Orthodox before us. That's just insanity. Let me see here. It says understandable really snuck in there. Or the OTP says, Father Methodius, Merry Christmas. Matthew Beckett says you should really post debate highlights. I would love it. First off, it was officially not a debate. It was a discussion. I asked for opening statements because remembering the first such discussion that we had, it was complete chaos. Nobody understood, or at least I'll put it this way, nobody in the audience understood what 75% of what me or Father John was talking about. And I did not want that to happen again. Let me see here. John A. says, Father Peter asserts that we need an ecumenical council, yet he also stated the Roman Catholics condemn themselves by adopting heresy. Contradiction. I really wanted to press him on that. I pressed him on exactly that, and I wasn't able to. Unseen warfare. Boris was a part of the Russian dissidents like Solzhenitsyn. Yeah. OTP says, John A. go read Father Peter's publication on common prayer with the heterodox. His own publication refutes his own ideology. Father Methodius says, thank you to OTP. Memento Mori says, I find it funny that he sticks to we need ecumenical councils to officially condemn heresy when St. Maximus the Confessor has refuted that argument from Bishop Theodosius. Indeed. Unseen Warfare says the Russian dissidents tried to force Roquefort into communion with the EMP not based on truth, and St. Philaret wasn't having it. It was tempting for some in Roquefort. I think St. Philaret wanted to resign. He indicated a wish to resign in some letters, actually. Father Pacomius says that's a situation he made for himself. So, speaking of Peter Hears, Lamont says Father Peter made it seem American Greek Church is the only problem. Is that true? Absolutely not. There's a rich history of ecumenism among all of the assembly churches. The assembly of, I'm going to call them the assembly of churches. That I think because it's some long, ridiculous name. We used to just call it SCOBA, and which stood for Standing Conference of Orthodox Bishops in America, which was their way of trying to make like an official church in America. But now it's like the Assembly of Canonical Official Orthodox Churches. I'm just going to call them the Assembly of Churches because that sounds way more Pentecostal. And let me see here. He does not live on monastery grounds. I was told he lives not attached to the monastery, but on, from what I understand, they're grounds owned by the monastery. So I'm not saying he lives at the monastery. He lives in a house with his family on their property. I don't know how much property they have. I know it's a lot of property. So I don't know what to tell you. OTP found that, laughed at something. That the compromise said, elders. Reader John said, Father Peter got a little sensitive when they mentioned his dear Romanitas. Yeah, that was actually a point where Father John was quite critical of Romanitas, and I was actually a little surprised. I was like, okay, yeah, you go ahead, go on now, that's cool. John A says,
what was he critical of Romanitas?
He was basically explaining that Romanitas is kind of like his history and his theology were kind of warped, etc. And Father Peter then said, like, some monk in the monastery of Gregorio, I want to say.
I'm confused. Who said
Father
what?
John attacked Romanitas.
Okay.
And Father Peter here, is being a former student of Romanitas, said that some monks in a monastery of Gregorio or something had formally like repented to them or something like that. I have no idea what it was. I was like, okay, this is weird hearsay.
Repented of what?
Yeah. John A says, Father here, Peter and his three elders repenting of his weird theology and stuff, like his the news juice. And John A says, Father Peter and his three elders, consensus of the saint. You see, this is what's going to make him suddenly appear out of nowhere. I can't. People act like I'm the only person saying this, and I have no idea why people think that. Memento Mori says, Elder Fronima, curious if that'll summon him. Yeah, I don't know the formula. OTP says the Holy Elder Hereticus. Irodika Pacomius says, I just assumed him not show up. Honestly, people have real questions and he'd just be an annoying distraction in my view. I don't think he would ever show up in my house. If he did, I would be very glad to take him on and to answer and to give back and forth. I'm okay with it. I'm not afraid of him. I think it'd be interesting. But I'm just making jokes about the summoning because someone said something like that on Twitter. Can anyone recommend books on Orthodox dogmatic theology besides Romanitas? Quite a number of books, actually. Let me think here. First off, I mean, Popozansky would be the first thing that goes through my head. But if we were talking about patristic books on Orthodox dogmatic theology, I mean, I'd probably go back to St. John of Damascus. Lanika, what would you suggest?
Sure. The fount of all knowledge, which is the exact exposition of Orthodox theology or the Orthodox faith by St. John Damascene. It's actually a 3-part text. It's called the fount of all knowledge, and it has 2 other parts to it, and you can find it for free on Internet Archive. Actually, it was translated in 1958. So.
Unseen Warfare says, I mean, what is happening as Figmenu? Are they not being persecuted currently? It is. I will explain this. As the internet has gotten faster, we do get questions like that pretty commonly. And what I mean by that is, before the internet was fast, and before there was an internet, Figmenu was being persecuted. Now, the state of persecution or siege is one of these things where you're dealing with police that don't have weapons that can destroy 1,000-year-old walls, and monks behind 1,000-year-old walls. Because of this, generally, not much happens at once. It's like it's very rare you see a flare up. They basically are in a state of détente. I wouldn't say détente sounds political. I would say a state of what's the term in chess? Stalemate, basically. So that right now neither side is doing it. That doesn't mean they're not being persecuted. They can't step off the monastery grounds without being shot or arrested, but nothing is happening as of yet. Friends of Esfig Menu, I do have a link in my homepage on YouTube. I would suggest following them. They do give updates, sometimes some sermons from Father Methodius, etc., and how to support them. So definitely that's something to reach out to. OTP says Orthodox Dogmatic Theology by Father Michael Pomazansky. It is the standard text in seminaries. So did Father Pacomius say the same thing. That one's pretty good. But also St. John of Damascus. Wicked Wally says, the more I'm learning about the history involving Sergianism, the more frustrating it is to hear people dumb down the dialogue on schism to McCallender when it's a far more complicated issue. And a far bigger issue because it's all over the world. We generally focus on Greece and Russia. No one's talking about what happened in Romania or what happened in Bulgaria or what happened in former Soviet areas that ended up becoming autonomous churches. Or Western Europe. Like there was an all-out assault on historic Orthodoxy in the first half of the 20th century, leading to even Western powers compromising, and obviously Soviet powers as well, compromising church bodies. It's so complex, but it's also huge, and that's something I'm going to try to get back to in my book, if I can ever get back to writing my book. But yeah. Jeremy, sorry if I missed it today or in the past, but has ecumenism been formally defined and condemned at a local council? See the 1983 anathema of Rokor. There have been others since then, but that's the one everyone thinks of. And Orthodox Wasna does point that out. OTP says St. Philaret was dead set on resigning because he was tired of all these bishops. I have the letters and they'll be published, and we will be waiting for that. What do you guys think of Leslie Brubaker? Is she a reliable scholar? Vladika, you know generally more about.
No, I just looked it up on YouTube.
Who is Leslie Brubaker?
On Wikipedia, she's maybe Modern Byzantine Institute, or I don't know much about her. So,
okay, yeah, we don't know her, but if her work is good, we'll eventually find it. Always take things with a critical eye, especially when dealing with modern scholars. Father Methodius said Rokor Synod of Bishops condemned it formally. And then Memento Mori said, oh, wait, is that how you summon him? News choose 3 times. Apparently not, because he's not here. Maybe Vladika Enoch knows. Okay, guys, stop trying to summon him. Father Antonio says, however, Father John did not insist of any proof of Romanita's deathbed repentance, but insisted on written proof of St. John of San Francisco's clear change in commemorating the MP. That is absolutely true. What's it called? Romagata says, these are not recent saints, though. Sunrise says, Rokor MP is so traditional that Metropolitan Jonah can say whatever he wants with that issue. Very true. Wicked Wally says, I work in a similar fashion. People make dumb comments about communism 3 times in a mirror, and I show up to yell at them about how economics works. Orthodox Traditionalist says, Father Antonius, I had an article on my website about the exact subject about St. John's rejection of the Soviet MP. And this is Epimendas Kosmas. Do any of you do anything Christian that doesn't involve professing theology? Well, we're not professing theology, and theologians are, those who pray. We do talk about church history, apologetics, and church facts.
I baptize people.
Yeah, I baptize people too. And we go to church, but like the show, it's called NFQ, True Orthodox News and Apologetics, and this is a live Q&A show. So I understand a lot of people, and there are a lot of great channels. You can get this, some of which are on my homepage, like the Rokana one and St. Sergius, and Orthodox Tradition, where you can watch services all day long. That's not what this is about. It's about something else. It is not very Christian to go about speaking with okay, so yeah. We don't try to talk about our private spiritual lives, I don't think. Unseen Warfare says Father Stern from Rose is referring to Romanitas, I think, in his book on St. Augustine. Yes, he is. Reader John said, "Wouldn't it be fun if we had a certain Father Peter on with Father a certain subdeacon and a certain reader? That would be a proper 3-on-1." It's a live Q&A show, guys. I have to keep pointing this out. Like, really, nobody is being stopped from jumping on the stream. All you have to do is just click the link in the top of the chat if you want to join. I mean, it's not that hard. Let me see here. You can also find a few articles in the Orthodox Word on the Revisionists, basically just extra stuff that connects with Orthodox dogmatic theology. Vladimir Moss did also grain of salt with him. Hierarchy Pacomius, it's none of your concern what Christian things I do. I serve at liturgy. That's all you need to worry about. Okay, I don't know who's getting personal in the comment section, but let's I don't know. It's a journey when let's stop with the personal attacks. I don't know if there's anyone else involved. Zelotes says, about as Figmenu Monastery, latest updates from Mount Athos. Zelotes Fathers is that right after the Greek government decided to invent the monastery, I don't know if he said invent the monastery, he means invade the monastery. There were about 300 earthquakes right around the monastery. Once Vladimir Putin stepped in and gave strict orders to the Greek government, they withdrew this decision and all the earthquakes stopped. Okay, I didn't know that, so that's pretty funny. So that apparently God decided to get involved, and when the Greek government wanted to invade, a whole bunch of earthquakes continued, and it was Vladimir Putin who said, "Guys, stop." And
these comments, I can't find. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I'm just not very good at computers.
So.
Okay.
So yeah, apparently they were stopped by an earthquake most recently.
Now there's an interesting comment by Chungus Kitten.
I was going to get to that. It was the next one.
Okay, all right.
Let me see here. Hierarchy can't find it anywhere. No such thing exists. Chungus Kitten, FYI, Elder Gregorius, abbot of Dormition Monastery in Bifkini, Lebanon, was mentioned by Father Peter as having been with Romanides at the end of his life, as he wrote a letter against the OO stuff. If you can find a copy of the letter, that is much more helpful than a testimony of some Father Baba at, monastery of this place, etc. I hear these things all the time. I heard of a Holy Father who said this and said this happened and this happened. And then they say that there's usually a document. And when you ask for the document, they never have one. So I'd really like to see the document. Chris G says, hi, sorry if this has already been asked, but where can I get more info from both sides on the GOCK? Was going to get around this on the old Discord, but it's gone now. I'll get why. I get why. Thanks. First off, Orthodox Traditionalist Publications, who is in the comment section, he's in the GOCK. You can ask him questions directly. There are a number of channels for the GOCK, especially in America. Orthodox Tradition is one of the largest ones. So there's a lot of info there. There's also the St. Photius Seminary, which also has a YouTube channel. All of these are on my homepage, guys. Just go there. Let me see. Reader John, OTP says, Reader John, I start a new doctoral class tomorrow. I'm taking a break from the YouTube year-endos for the next 8 weeks. Completely understand that. Let me see. Sunrise Father, didn't you guys address you guys didn't address the Marble King Friday? Yeah, I think in the fate, like, if you don't have a throng of, worshipful groupies surrounding you, you don't talk about the Marble King. Because if you talk about the Marble King to regular people, you get noted as insane. That's my personal take on it. From Agata, it took 3 days for Craig to mute that one named P, but only 30 seconds to mute OTP. Okay. I wasn't in the chat. So, Journey, when I was just responding to the original comment from Cosmos explaining why on this show the discussion leans towards apologetics discussion, I was defending the show. Forgive me. Not a problem. I just don't want anyone to take anything personally. So, I'm not offended at all. Just Sunrise said, yeah, Craig needs chat moderators. Ton of blasphemy in the chat. I have no comments on Craig's moderation. Without a copy of the letter, it's just hearsay. It means nothing without technical evidence. Father Pacomius, very true. Memento Mori, wicked wally people who boil it down to quote-unquote the calendar issue are regurgitating what the YouTube talking heads tell them. It's strange for the oversimplification when the EP admitted it was for ecumenism. Very true. Chungus Kitten, yeah, I have no evidence of this letter, just FYI. Elder Glorious was at his Uncut Mountain Conference in December in Arizona. That's to me, it's, again, credulous groupies. Unless we see these documents, I assume they're not real. Orthodox Traditionalist Publications, email me. Unseen Warfare. Can you talk about St. Tikhon supposedly retracting his anathema against the Soviet regime? A Soviet apologist has been spreading that lately. Wasn't he killed by the Soviets in 1924? St. Tikhon, I believe, was killed before that. It may have been as late as 1924. I don't have my dates on me. But the first repentance and retraction were obvious forgeries. Nobody outside of Russia recognized them as legitimate.
St. Tikhon was killed in 1925. So,
okay.
Yes.
But, well, you know about the supposed retraction of his anathema that the Soviets put out? I think it was unsigned.
Wasn't there something that he said that he called for people not to try to violently overthrow the government or something?
Right, but that's not that.
Yes,
wasn't.
that's all I could think of. Like he did get to the point where he was like, okay, I don't call for the violent overthrow of the Soviet government anymore. Which itself was controversial, by the way, because a lot of people, there were still, like, I think there were still people, like, even into the 20s and 30s that were actively sabotaging, the Soviet, machine and things like that. So.
Yeah, but it is worthy of noting, and what Unseen Warfare is talking about on Twitter is a guy who literally has the username Marx, but he takes the Soviet line, which is that St. Tikhon was not a martyr. St. Tikhon was not poisoned. St. Tikhon wrote a retraction and supported the Soviets, both of which were debunked forgery letters, and then died peacefully of a heart attack, all of which is just a big Soviet lie. Let me see here. Chris G says, thanks, will do. Jeremy, hired Deacon Pacomius, I understand St. Tikhon didn't actually declare loyalty to the Soviet. He anathematized the Soviet regime. But Father Joseph told the commenter to go ahead and read his statement. What statement? That's my point. These things are, I'm not sure. Okay, now I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Jeremy, I'll let Father Joseph answer that. I don't want to presume. What on earth are we talking? I don't know what we're talking about.
If you have a copy of Russia's Catacomb Saints, I think there's some stuff in there.
Okay. Well, I can try to put that on the screen.
It's like far. I don't know. You can, yeah, I guess.
Give me a second. I'll go to the I know there's a copy of it on the cafe. So let me just put that there. Hold on. Document library. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna let you go, Father. I can't. I've got to go to bed.
Okay. I understand. That's fine.
Right. Christ is born.
Glorify him. Okay, so I'm gonna look for Russia's Catacomb Saints and see if I can find it. All right. I see that we have parts of it, but not necessarily. It hasn't been. Okay, here it is. Okay, so let's open up the PDF and let's see here. I mean, ultimately, you should get a copy of Russia's Catacomb Saints rather than have me look for the text and read it to you. I can put a link to it in the chat. And I would suggest reading basically, let's see, probably the introduction, and up to chapter 1 on page 43. But let me just put a link to that so you have it, because that is useful to that. Orflow Steak says, Father bless. Bless you. Does Peter's group on baptism make sense? A lot of clergy in World Orthodoxy are accepted through chrismation. Wouldn't that mean that anyone clergy baptizes won't actually be baptized? Yes, that's exactly what it means. And that's why his position is so problematic. Okay, let me see here. Maximus said, yes, I've been told I wasn't really in the church. Well, you just have to get it corrected. You get a corrective baptism. Father Gears doesn't have a group effort. Orflow states he's been on his own without a bishop or wider church. Well, Orflow said, by group, I mean anyone in the same camp. He means the fighting from within crowd who don't have a bishop or hierarchy or anything of the sort. Anonymous Man 115 says, I don't know if you guys answered this, but what's the thought on Pavel Florensky? I heard he retracted his whole Soviology thing. I actually have put on ground of the truth by him. It depends. It really depends on who. It's like we this would now be the third retraction on one show. Supposedly, I'd have to hear about. Supposedly, Romanitas retracted. And so this would just be another one. The stream started at 7:15. Our general time to try to get the stream going is going to be around 6. However, I had a bunch of duties to take care of today. So hopefully next Sunday it should be back at the time around 6. And Orpheus states, how does Here's Group deal with the fact that there are people fully canonically baptized in the church by people who they don't consider Orthodox? That's really a question for them. I realize it is a contradictory position, but it's not mine, and it's not true Orthodoxy's. So you're asking the wrong people. Let me see here. Now, I wanted to get to this. I wanted to get to this one video, and again, I haven't said it in a while, but I do really mean it. And that is that if you could support the channel, we at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net on GiveSendGo or with crypto. We legitimately do really need assistance. This is how we keep the lights on here. It is very important. So please help with the donation. We can't do that without you. Super chats help, and I really, really appreciate them. So if you want to, send a super chat, it does take a little longer, but it still helps a lot. Let me see here. Reconquista Orthodox says, you should have asked Father Heater's position on what he thinks about a Jewish doctor. It wasn't relevant to the discussion. At least I'm sure that he probably has some creative position I'm not even aware of. Let me see here. I think somewhere in the catacomb states it says Florensky came out against Sergius, and the two were all kind of surprised because they all thought he was in delusion. Orthodox was says, what is Hierodeacon Pachomius talking about? Unfortunately, this is there's side chatter in the chat. I have no idea. I can only deal with stuff that really addresses me or addresses us. And speaking of which, thank you for your support, Sunrise, with $19.99. If it makes you happy, Father, people were mentioning Olight flashlights on Greg's stream. See? You see? Now, I wish I had known that. If I had known that, then I could have brought this out. And this would be awesome to bring out because, frankly, nobody has this. We can all talk about Olight flashlights all day, but in the end, nobody has the NFT light. So, let's continue on and see here. And so thank you for that. Okay, Unseen Warfare is on. Greetings.
Hey, how you doing, Father? Bless.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. Nick the Goat comes in. Thank you for supporting the channel with a $9.99 smile and a cross. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And it's very appreciated. Seriously. And so let's see here. So what's on your mind today, Unseen?
Well, I was thinking about something Father John said about St. John Maximovich during the debate, and he sort of conflated some things. He was like, yeah, St. John venerated, Metropolitan Alexei, and then he sort of admitted, that once St. John found out that, he stopped the veneration, but then he kind of went and smokescreen to this point that, he wasn't that harsh on Sergius or something. I don't know. It's weird. He kind of made it out that, that St. John was supportive of World Orthodoxy or the MP, which isn't the case.
I'm kind of amazed how many people were shocked by what Father John said. I was shocked. So I'm not as, I'm as surprised as everyone else. Romagata says he's just a jerk. James says the post-debate after party. Sunrise says NFTU Funko Pop. Yep, that's not happening. I don't think they make Funko Pops that fat. Atomic Lead says Gene in the chat. Gene says where? Reckon says Sergius might have repented. There is no real evidence of that. Atomic Lead says, I don't know, I can't find him anymore. Hierodeacon Pachomius says St. John became Orthodox. I think you mean Father John became Orthodox in 1991. What would Father John know about him beyond what is written? That's true, and this is something that we tend to forget, is that even somebody who has been in the ROCOR or a branch of the ROCOR as the ROCOR MP since 35 years ago. 35 years ago, there was chaos in the ROCOR, then undivided. between different groups that would eventually break off. And some support from Black Ortho Acolyte, $10. Thank you so much for that. The just over the calendar sentiment is bad in my opinion. When examples of Aaron's sons being killed for presenting strange fire is used as an apologetic against prots to show how God cares about how we worship. You're absolutely right. It is, and it's hypocritical, ultimately, is what it comes down to.
I have 2 points about Sergius. So there's Natalia Yursova, and then in the St. Nectarius book that the Orthodox that St. Herman's put out, St. Nectarius was asked, well, he was told rather, Sergius repented, and St. Nectarius said, well, the poison's still in him, and that's in that book. So that's something to think about.
Yep. Gage Carson has a question, and once again proves that the chat is just as smart as your average apologetical mastery group that says, who is the OCA bishop you mentioned in the debate that rejected the Fifth Ecumenical Council and praised Origen? May as well have been a quiz question because no less than 4 people, I think, 1, 2, 3 or 4 people immediately answered Bishop Alexander of the OCA. That is correct. You all win. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. What was with the Peter debate versus Putin conversation during the debate? That was an interesting thing because I kind of saw it coming. And what I mean by that is, ever since we've been coming out more vocally against Sergianism, the old Soviet fallback line is, "What about Peter the Great?" Because there's always a whataboutism that comes when you're dealing with Soviet apologetics. And immediately when you say the Bolsheviks and the Soviets killed millions of Orthodox Christians, immediately they're like, Peter the Great was evil, though. Don't you agree? So I actually was coming in with positives about Peter the Great, which surprised them. I do not have a high estimation of Peter the Great in terms of historical czars, but he wasn't the Soviets, was my point. And I don't think they were prepared for that counter. So immediately it went to, is Peter the Great better than Putin? And it just that went where it had to go, I guess.
That's such a slanted way to look at things. Like, Peter the Great didn't kill millions, did he?
No, he didn't.
Very different.
Yeah. It's typical Soviet equivocation. Not accusing anyone in the discussion of being Soviet themselves, but the point is that's where it came from. It was originally the Soviets who did stuff like that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of this, these talking points are just regurgitated Soviet propaganda, and I'm not sure they're aware of it.
Let me see here. TNC says, Father bless, God bless you. Unseen Warfare, good evening, brother. Sergius is in the same company with Arius, and may God enlighten and correct those who cannot see the obvious. Very true. Very true. Hierodeacon Pacomia says, that's what I've heard. I'm very sorry to hear that. May he repent of his errors and may God grant him mercy. Okay, I'm not. Oh, because he has cancer, I guess. Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that Bishop Alexander has cancer. May he repent and see the truth before the end. Or may God grant him healing and illumination. It's all up to God what he wants to do, but that doesn't mean it's not up to us to ignore the fact that we must adhere to the holy councils. He says, I've seen many Latin America world Orthodox who seem to embrace heresy. I think it's the way they were taught. Are they responsible for being taught incorrectly? Unfortunately, people, while they can be catechized improperly and they can be taught errors, ultimately there's some level of accountability a person has to do. We're supposed to be a flock of rational sheep, not blind ones. So we have to, at times, investigate critically in order to make conclusions. Putin's church has dogmatized ethnophilitism with the Russian world idea. I really think that's more of a geopolitical idea than it is a spiritual idea, but I get what you're saying. James says, do you mean in Guatemala and southern Mexico? I am not sure. Sunrise says, I feel like World Orthodox are like papists. They spam 10 assertions and you can't break them down because of time constraints. No, I don't think I think that was a very messy discussion. I think that in a normal, unbiased and neutral kind of placing, a normal venue, that wouldn't happen. Especially with relatively loose speaking, it would not be that big of a problem. So can anyone recommend Orthodox books on the Old Testament? Let me think here. I mean, because there are books on Old Testament books, like Saint Jerome had commentaries on certain Old Testament books. You'd have to look. It depends. There's no definitive Orthodox book on the Old Testament. You'd have to find specific
I'd
books.
recommend the Katina Bible app. Probably that's what I use when I'm
checking
out those things.
It's a fancy. I recommend that wholly. I have that myself, and it does reference fathers' commentaries on the Old Testament. What's up with World Orthodox parishes sticking up memorial signs of George Floyd of fentanyl in front of their parishes? I guess a ton of Go Arch parishes are making Floyd memorial signs too. I saw one of those in the OCA. It was really weird. James says, I haven't seen that, but I do see it in Presbyterian churches a lot. It seems they were predestined to suck. Fair enough, Father. Let me see. James says, Conquista in Guatemala. There was an OCA one in Minnesota recently. Saw it on Facebook. I saw that one too, and it was it's so weird. Like, and a Go Arch one in Georgia. I tried asking. Jeremy says I tried asking this earlier. In the debate, I don't think it was addressed. Someone in your pre-debate stream claimed Saint Tikhon declared loyalty to the Soviet regime. Did he do this or something similar in 1923? I don't know if you were listening, Jeremy, but I literally addressed it and said no. It was most likely a forgery. What is being referred to by the Marxist? It was actually Unseen Warfare who was actually confronted by this Marxist on Twitter. So we not only addressed it, but we rejected the claim outright because it doesn't match with what happened with the life of St. Tikhon. These same people will also claim St. Tikhon wasn't poisoned despite there being witness and doctor testimony. So that is the answer.
I mean, the guy's got nothing but Stalin all over his page, so it's kind of ridiculous.
Not you, Jeremy. This is the Marx guy. Reckless Keys says, team in some parts. Maximus said he wouldn't try and overthrow the government. Yeah, that's it. That's all he said. The New Catacombs, patristic commentary and homilies on the Old Testament. St. Seraphim's book on Genesis is wonderful. Thank you for that, New Catacombs. If you can recommend specific volumes, that'd be great. And I didn't know there was a St. Seraphim book on Genesis. Oh, you're talking about St. Seraphim Rose's book, Genesis, Creation of Early Men. That one is really good. Blacklight of fentanyl, LOL. John MC says those were definitely Bolshevik forgeries. Absolutely true. Recon Keys to Orthodox says, Gene, in some part of Latin America and down here in Miami, a priest just passed away, and I looked on part of Goa because he was celebrating with other groups. It wouldn't surprise me. The New Catacomb, St. Tikhon never did that. The OCA, for example, says St. Tikhon was never poisoned, etc. They teach it at St. Tikhon's. Ironically enough, Lord have mercy on us. That's true. The New Catacombs, and that was one of the things that I thought was weird. When I first learned about St. Tikhon's life, he was referred to as the Holy Hieromartyr Tikhon. And when I first walked into an OCA church when I was a wee lad, and saw an icon of St. Tikhon that called to me, I noticed it was signed. It said Hieroconfessor Tikhon. So I thought that was very strange. And and then I was like, I'm like, isn't it martyr? And the guy at the store was like, well, that's only in Rocor. I was like, what? Anyway, okay, no problem, Jeremy. It was fine, and we appreciate it. James says, Reconquista, I need to do more research on this because all I know is that the OO Syriacs grew a lot in Central America and they haven't strayed from that sect. EO, not sure. You're going to see a lot more growth in Latin America, Jim, because of just the absolute chaos and disaster that is the Roman Catholic Church right now. Because unlike here, where it's just like, oh, Pope Francis said something horrible, sad face, most countries in South America, as I recall, still have a concordat with the Vatican. So the Vatican still retains some sort of official status in the region. And I've got stories about that, but I'm not going to get into that. Father Peter, Johnny says, Father Peter asserted in the debate that innovations do not warrant schism. Thoughts? Yeah, sure. I would say that introducing cruets in the liturgy to hold wine is not heretical. However, I wouldn't say that introducing the filioque into the creed is the same thing. Innovations you have to be specific with them. Father Peter knows what innovations we're talking about. He knows about the joint prayer. He knows all about this stuff. That's lawyering. That's wordplay.
I think another point is with the early old calendars, from what I understand, is that before, as they were hearing these things, they sort of discerned them with their spirit that something was off.
Yeah.
Like that was a major point. It didn't have to be told to them, like, this innovation is connected with ecumenism. They knew it was. Like, they sort of discerned that this is heading into a really dangerous area.
Yep.
And there's some writings on that you can find.
All right. Well, welcome, Zelotus. Good to have you on the stream. As always, anyone can join just by clicking on the link at the top of the chat.
Welcome.
May God,
How are you doing?
I'm okay. May God bless you. Okay. Let me see here. James says, what kind of innovations did he mean? Real bid'ah or innovations like leaflets instead of chisel and stone? I mean, when we talk about this stuff, we talk about ecumenism, Sergianism, and modernism as heretical innovations. Obviously, he said not all innovations. Well, those are the ones I talked about, so I have no idea what he was talking about. Rick says, Father, someone was just chrismated because they came from the Latin Church. My understanding is their baptism is invalid. That would be a good assumption because that's been the position of Rocor since 1973. But more importantly, I can say as a former Roman Catholic, most of the time they're just doing pouring, sometimes over the head, sometimes not.
That would have been St. Basil's position, I think, too, right?
Yeah.
And a couple others.
Yep. Let me see here. Orthodox Wazna says, yes, what do you think about Father Peter differentiating innovators from heretics? I think that he was just trying to muddle things up because he knew what I was talking about. He knew who we all are talking about. It's silly to say he was talking, well, who do you mean? That's just ridiculous.
He's talking to the audience, and he's trying, he thinks that no one knows what he really means, you know?
New Catacombs says it's kind of like how Martyr became Passion Bearer in Rocor with a lot of saints. Yeah, absolutely. A martyr for the nation, it kind of implies not a real martyr. That did happen with a lot of saints. James says, thank you for clarifying that. John A., in the context of the debate, it was a calendar change, but his point seemed to apply to innovations in general. Well, yeah, whenever you start generalizing a specific situation, it's a way of escaping the actual discussion. John MC says, what? They teach that at St. Ticon's? I should not be surprised at this point. I'm old. Nothing surprises me anymore. Yeah, unfortunately. Atomic Lead points out, Christotokos was an innovation. Very true. There was a time when the sun was not. Was an innovation. Very true. One will was an innovation. Very true. James says, yes, all the early schisms were over what one might call mere word innovations, but they caused huge rifts. Arianism, Nestorius, and Miaphysis, etc. Absolutely. FPH motto is obey the innovators for now, just like his quote-unquote Saint Gervasius. Unfortunately, that's true. In the debate, they mentioned that true Orthodox synods are not in communion with other true Orthodox synods. This was framed as a gotcha. Is this actually a problem? Why aren't true Orthodox synods in communion with others? Well, considering that we're the ones who were the victims of persecution throughout the world, the fact that we don't have our stuff together immediately, we would ask for some slack. It isn't a gotcha. I've been true Orthodox for over 20 years. I know lots of people who have been true Orthodox, if not their whole lives, for very long periods of time, and it's generally not that big an issue. The Orthodox world is small. Everyone knows everyone. I think that this sort of thing, like they're all divided. That's why when you point out Moscow and the Ecumenical Patriarchate, they're immediately like, oh, but they're connected via other groups. Oh, magically, tangential communion worketh for thee, but not for me. Okay. Let me see here. What's holding them back from communion with each other? A lot. But mostly some of it is individual grudges, some of it's distance, some of it's simply estrangement. In many cases, especially like the cases of Romania and Bulgaria, nobody had contacted them from other synods for decades. So, I don't want to say that we're a little bit spoiled by time, but we kind of are. That we live in an age where there's fast international communication, and then applying it backwards and going, well, why didn't they do more? I think that's unfair. And I think we need to lay some slack on our holy fathers in the past.
So
yes, Zelotes, what are your thoughts?
well, actually I want to say something about the panel with Father Pierce and Father John. I've noticed there was a lot of bluffing there from both of them, and in some point, with all of my respect, a lot of hypocrisy. Like, how can Father Pierce, Peter Pierce, what was his opinion about Iacovos Koukouzis, the former Archbishop of America? Like he was a mention. Anyway, something that we didn't mention. I want to mention it if I had the opportunity to jump in the stream.
Yeah, but I noticed you were saying "let me in," and I'm like, I have no control over the stream. But,
so the other one is that I think we should not judge Saint John Maximovich if he ever may commemorate Patriarch Alexei, because we're talking about a period of time that Saint John Maximovich was in Shanghai, then he went to Philippines, then he went to San Francisco, and the question is, how did he get up? How was he getting updates on what's going on in Russia? Back then, we didn't have internet, no phones, nothing, no newspapers, nothing. So if somebody came from Russia and told him, you know what, the patriarch changed and he's good now and he's doing that, okay, even if I was in St. John Maximovich's position, I would have commemorated him. But
what they actually did,
but no communication, right?
What they told him, they actually told him, they communicated to him that the synod of the Church abroad had been destroyed.
There you go, another fake.
So once he found out the truth, he repented. Yeah,
exactly, and they didn't want to accept it.
Yep, absolutely.
And Father John and Father Peter, they rejected. No, he didn't. Yeah, how do you know that? Why should we believe at all the bluffs they provided us, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway,
okay,
that was that's the only thing I wanted to say, and I'll keep listening to you.
All right.
Because I have to go back to work. Thank you so much.
No problem. God bless you, Zelotes. You have a good night.
Later, brother.
Okay. Let me see here. New Catacomb says innovation is worth breaking communion over. Whatever gets those Patreon numbers up. Maybe I should get a Patreon. I mean, I'm pretty poor right now.
This false publications guy, you'll have fun with that.
If he's on the bottom, I have to do these chats in order. Charitable nuanced methodology of contemporary elders, says Sunrise. Wicked Wally says, for the record, I ended that debate proving Father Joseph has the best sense of humor. Everyone else, I've seen Roman Catholic priests laugh harder. I'm going to tell you, I was surprised. You told a pretty good dad joke. I thought it was funny, but I was surprised nobody else laughed. I was like, are they that angry? Like they can't make a joke? I know they were in a bad mood. Someone messed up their Wheaties or something. I have no idea. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. Let me see here. The Wheaties, yeah. Let me see. Black Ortho Acolyte says, is there a difference between engaging in heresy and teaching heresy? Example, is there a difference between someone who prays with heretics versus teaches publicly that praying with them is okay to do? From a canonical disciplinary standpoint, there's little difference. What does change is the severity of it. If a person who is an ecumenist decides to pray in a heterodox or ecumenical meeting and he's, say, a priest, obviously he's condemned for that. But I would imagine a bishop saying it's okay publicly is a magnitude worse, an order of magnitude worse. But yeah, in the end, it's still the same charge. Reconquista says, Father, a lot of Masons have to do gay things when initiated. Do you think the World Orthodox Masons have done that? As far as I know, and I'm not one to defend the Masons, and let's be clear, I do not defend the Masons. However, I have seen a number of their works, both in public. I've seen some of the secret stuff that's been revealed. Some of it's even been revealed in recent cell phone footage by people being signed up. There's no gay stuff in there. I mean, if there's gay stuff at the higher levels, okay, but I'm not aware of it. I know people who were Masons, former Masons, who would probably get really mad that you're implying that being a Mason is being gay.
I think that's more Skull and Bones or something. You know what I mean?
Skull and Bones might have been kind of gay, and I know Bohemian Grove was kind of gay, but the point is, I don't think the Masons were. Orthodox Wazna says, the old elderly grandma in Greece was a true Orthodox, didn't need to know every single detail about ecumenism to struggle against ecumenism. That is correct. New Catacomb says, here's things we're in schism, despite the fact that we're not, but he shouldn't say that because even a legitimate schismatic has the same amount of bishops that he has. Actually, we have more. But that's beside the point. Ultimately, if you're wondering why some comments are appearing on the screen and some not, you can become a member, sign up, and your comments will always appear on the screen, even if you don't put in a super chat, although we would love a super chat. And again, a reminder to support the channel. We at NFT need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net on Give, Send, Go, or with crypto. We really could use your help. It does literally keep the lights on. And once again, let's take a look. And we are now at the 25th minute of the second hour. So let's continue on. It is our live Q&A session where you can get your questions answered live, as well as member requested video reviews. So if let's continue on. Let me see here. James says, didn't think homo. Okay, wait, no, there was more. Oh boy, there's a lot more. Here's since we're in systems, that's the fact we're not. Okay, I got to that one. John A. Would the COVID innovations, multiple spoons, masking in church, no icon venerations, be heretical or warrant a schism? The more I hear about them, the more I tend towards saying yes. Orthodox Seeker, I wasn't a fan of the way the debate was moderated. Trust me, you're in an increasingly large club. Maximus says, well, not even the Church of Greece says we're not in schism. They might say that on paper, but in practice, they still try to sue to take the buildings and things like that. Reconquista, did bishops in true Orthodoxy encourage the churches to stay open during the pandemic? They were certainly, I would say, more strongly worded in terms of things like staying open. Not all of them were that strict, but I know that at least I'm aware of a number of bishops who were very adamant about fighting what the state was requesting. Max was at State Church, called us unruly elements. Hokulani, for now until the grid goes down, we can communicate fast. Well, that's fine, but that don't apply that to the fathers of generations, decades, ages past, and then say, why didn't they do enough to maintain unity? I mean, they had basic survival going on. Show some charity. James, I didn't think homo sorcery and masonry would be mentioned in the chat. Welcome to our chat. Reconquista Orthodox, why does Peter hears so hard on Theo when he is more in line with Theo and the world Orthodox despise him? Most parishes speak negatively about him because he has a very useful business model. He makes money trying to sound as traditional as possible while advocating for bishops who don't like what he says.
Serving mammon, pretty much.
Let me see here. I'm going to get, I'm still moving as fast as I can, but I do see a super chat, so thank you. Sarah from Webster, Father bless them, World Orthodox, my wife is confirmed from RCC. Next Saturday, we will both become catechumens together with the GOCK. Your videos helped a ton. God bless you. That is wonderful to hear. Congratulations and many years to both you and your spouse. Let's go back up. And let's see, false publications. Oh, wait, not putting those up. This is one of the angry guys, I guess. Why did open intercommunion and commemoration of the Pope in the 1600s in Greece not necessitate breaking off? Either you accepted were under bishops who did this. Saints who accepted were under bishops who did this. Well, let's break down the massiveness of the claim, because it is a massive, massive claim. And if it was historically true in its whole self, would mean that everyone in Orthodoxy is just a liar and we should all be Roman Catholics. Okay, hold on. Well, we have welcome.
That was fast.
Patrick Trulia. Oh, and welcome, Reader John. Okay, everyone's jumping in now. I don't know if Zalota's
No, this is a one body slam, so this isn't.
Sorry, I had to put my kids down.
Oh, you guys came in at the exact same time, which I thought was hilarious.
And
I literally just put my kid to sleep too.
Yeah.
Didn't put him down though. I just put him to sleep. Well, that's just as bad.
I don't know if Zelotus, do you want to be in on, because he's in the back, if you want
So-
to be here too as well?
This is a 5-on-1 body slam, Father Joseph.
Not a 5-on-1 body slam. I'm
It's
not going to
just
say anything.
they're all attacking at the same time.
No one's saying anything.
I'll be nice and gentle with Craig.
All right. What are your? Go ahead.
Well, before I get started, please keep me in your prayers, all of you. I went to the hospital yesterday. I have double pneumonia, so if I start hacking, I'm going to mute myself.
Well, I understand, Reader John. Prayers for your recovery.
But boy, while I was wallowing in misery, I did watch that live stream, and I have thoughts.
You were in the hospital hacking up, like watching this.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, I had a breathing machine on. I was going, ooh.
Then, like, Father Peter came on and you choked, and
A little bit, and I wanted to ask Craig about that.
Well, we call him Patrick here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick. Sorry.
Well, Father Joseph, literally, I just got on. You brought me on instantly. That's literally the moment Father John Whiteford.
Welcome, Father Boniface.
There you go. 6 people. 6 slam.
Now the fun begins.
The moment Father John dropped out, I looked down, and then Father Peter was right there.
I know. I was like, what?
That's like, oh, there he is. And so that's what I figured. Well, now's the right opportunity to talk about that one thing and then move it along. And yeah, change the whole affect of the episode after that.
I think that was kind of unfair, though, because I'm the one who's mainly criticized Father Peter, not Father Joseph.
Well, at least it got a little fair now when the guys went away. Now it's only 4-on-1.
Well, I wasn't sure if Zelotus wanted to be there or not, but he dropped off altogether. He was in the backstage because he had been on earlier. I mean, ultimately, I get where Reader John's coming from. There is a lot of criticism of Father Peter. And the truth is, it's not just this channel with the modern elder stuff. It is not just us.
But I've dropped off lately because I thought we were kind of in a post-Hears era.
Yeah.
Because a lot of his inconsistencies have been exposed that I've noticed for like 15 years. So,
I mean, a big reason why we reject some of these elders is because, like, take an instance like the Prophet Eliasky. Okay, Bartholomew kicks those monks out of their monastery that are in Rocor, and Paisios says they're a mother with cancer. So what are we supposed to think of that? That's strange that he's commemorating an open ecumenist who supports Freemasonry and all types of weirdness, and kicks out.
Wait! Hold on, Unseen Warfare. Is Freemasonry an innovation or a heresy?
I mean, we all know the answer. That's kind of a rhetorical question. He's asking a rhetorical question. Yeah.
I think what came up there was not whether you agreed with, let's say, the roster of saints that a World Orthodox Christian would have, because clearly that wouldn't be the case. The question would be whether the methodology, accepting slate of saints, said roster of saints, would be to interpret a consensus of saints all the way into the present. And that's I'd say pretty obvious. And so, we have to go, all right, well, the methodology is sound, but we question, let's say, the roster of saints you're picking. Right, if a Roman Catholic were to use the correct methodology, clearly the roster of saints would be categorically incorrect, right?
Well, even the way you're framing that, Patrick, is problematic.
He was accused of the wrong methodology, and I feel what we successfully hammered out was the methodology is right. The point of difference is on what saints one would use. And all right, I'll keep my peace.
Okay.
Well, I think that the way we see things is that, if this is an ecumenist hierarchy, who they regard as saints, why should we care if they regard them as saints or not? And
you wouldn't,
especially if they're talking out and, calling our monks that are being kicked off the holy mountain, cancerous.
Yeah, you wouldn't be expected to them. It would just be like if someone quotes Pope John Paul II to us, say Saint Pope John Paul II. Why would we listen to that? So, yes, but those are two different concerns, right? We have to categorize the difference between those concerns. if we're going to dispute someone. So you can say, I don't accept this saint, but it's another thing then to accuse that person of Garandism because of the saints he does accept. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's elder worship. Really, is what it
I
comes down to.
don't think it's
is when
worship.
you're
I think that's a
saying
little harsh. I think it's more of a cultish behavior, and I don't mean cult in the positive sense, because you can have a cultus around a supposed holy elder, right? And I see what Patrick's saying about the methodology, but the methodology, if you want to be consistent, is that the more contemporary fathers agree with the previous fathers. See, the problem I see with Father Peter, and I've always criticized this, is he starts in the contemporary and works his way back in his talks. Whether that's what he actually thinks, I don't know. He's never come on here. But
there's several saints, though, that have made observations like that. But I think for those of us who like history, we always like starting from the beginning and working forwards. I mean, that's what I do personally.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I do personally. I'm a historian. So,
what's it? St. Justin Popovich even says, let's say, with the Pan-Orthodox councils after the 7 ecumenical councils, says, well, we interpret those in light with the 7 ecumenical councils and accept with what's consistent with the 7 ecumenical councils. And that makes sense, right? It's about the preservation, the apostolic deposit of faith. Everything must harmonize with what's in the beginning. You don't start with the present and then harmonize the past to the present, right?
Correct.
That's doctrinal development. If we're to do
that would be poor hermeneutics, wouldn't you think?
So I think your concern as to the possible danger and misapplication of the hermeneutic is correct. I'll leave it to others because I haven't seen everything Father Peter has made, whether he's consistent with hermeneutic or goes too much to the present and doesn't harmonize the past.
Well, what I'm getting from it is
the main thing is we have to dispute whether or not the methodology is wrong when criticizing it. And the answer he gave during the show was no different than Father Joseph. And so that's all I was...
Right, but...
well, hold on, Patrick. Technical issue. Can you hear Unseen Warfare?
I look at the camera, so I don't know. I'm sure him before.
Okay, I think he was trying to interject and kind of clarify with you.
I didn't hear him then.
Okay,
right.
So what I'm trying to say is that we have like a saint, like Elder Savas, right? So Elder Savas of Mount Athos. He has directly refuted Saint Paisios, or Elder Paisios, rather, what you would call saint. So in his thing is that this theology that these, what they call the New Athenites, came about in the 1920s when the Fanar sort of said that, heretics had the grace of God just the same as Orthodox. And when he said that if, we're to say that these saints, the zealots, are outside the church and they're schismatic, then we'll have to throw out like St. Maximus the Confessor or St. Mark of Ephesus, who, in that case, he broke communion with 3 patriarchates over the monothelite heresy. So breaking communion over heresy is historical and how Orthodox are supposed to deal with it. And then they say, well, okay, now we have this issue with it's setting up a parallel. Well, it's not a parallel. If you have if you're introducing innovations and you're pushing ecumenism, we're not parallels. You're doing something completely different. It's as if you're staying with a monothelite patriarch. In the case of Saint Mark of Ephesus, or excuse me, Saint.
Well, I think Patrick and Father Peter brought up a good point on that, though, because history is messy. I think Patrick would agree with that. And when everybody received that encyclical from the Ecumenical Patriarch in 1920, everybody was kind of scratching their heads on how to deal with it, and some were a little more quick and discerning to deal with it.
Father Boniface, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't have anything to say at the moment. Nothing on the top of my head.
Well, what did you have for dinner today?
I will say this on the monothelites. Because when it comes to what has happened in the 20th century and on, I really personally don't have any polemical concerns about it. It's outside my area of expertise, and I'm not here or there for what that matter is to condemn true Orthodox. The idea
he's
is
about the rise and fall of the papacy.
Yeah, well, it's
You're welcome.
Wheelhouse, right? My concern is to keep it open dialogue so we could actually intelligently discern these issues, and we can't do that without listening to each other. But about the monothelites, it is interesting. The correct side on the monothelite issue and that whole controversy were the contrarians, right? Saint Maximus, Saint Pope Martin. Then he was deposed and replaced by his own synod. And pretty much the whole world went against him. Vitalian went into communion with the monothelites. So pretty much it would look like for decades, which again, it's less long. We're now 100 years since the whole calendar debacle. But for decades, it wasn't like a short period of time, and deaths of saints, the whole church pretty much was just going along with this thing. Doesn't mean every single bishop went with the heresy, right?
I think
we have Saint
but Vitalian did concelebrate with the monothelites. And so the interesting thing is the saints who are on the correct side of this question died not in peace with the church that ended up rectifying this question. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen today, but this is the sort of messiness in history that does exist. Yes. And that's why we don't want to condemn someone who's on the right side of a doctrinal question, because he might end up being vindicated by all sides on that same question, even if it looks like he's on the outs. Orthodoxy is orthodoxy.
History does sort itself out over time, though. And
before we go on, I really want to. Obviously, we have super chats. I want to put them on the screen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Take care of those.
I don't make money on those super chats. I don't care.
Well, but that's how I pay my bills. Greg, if you have a Jewish doctorate against the canons, just in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I've read the canons. I know.
And you can't eat Jewities.
Craig is still my favorite Black Orthodox Christian.
I think according to DNA, it's only like 1% North African, and I'm sure that's not Black.
Well, you can't. I mean,
but who knows?
Yeah. Well,
hey, I got Ashkenazi. They're always picking on me. So
there we go. Right. I think it's on the Italian side, it's the North African.
Now, I'd like to address something on the question with Father Peter and this issue, and that is that we get clips very often, and I will play them sometimes, and we get clips of Father Peter talking about these things. The reason for the bringing up of the elders is not because of the fact that in any way, shape, or form I was making a long commentary on his hermeneutic, but he had been directly confronted, sometimes on his program, sometimes with super chats.
It's like the Zealot Jungle.
Yeah, who flat out said, "Why do you place modern elders above the consensus of the fathers?" And his answer to them was that you cannot understand the consensus without these elders. The problem is that if you don't recognize those elders, obviously, you would understand that sort of interpretation of the consensus doctrine would fail. But more importantly, I certainly wasn't making the accusation or making the case that he was pushing the elders. He does that himself. It's not like
I mean, there's no secret he's an elder Ephraim guy. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, he lives on the monastery property.
It's not like we're trying to disparage him. Yeah. We're just calling a spade a spade.
Oh, like for him to get like waxed indignant about it
again, though. If someone accepts someone as a saint, let's say Father Daniel Caesar, if he's not yet canonized, you could heed their teaching, and as much as it's consistent with the consensus teaching of the saints throughout Orthodox history.
Yeah.
And I just haven't heard Father Peter Ears ever give any other sort of defense of his hermeneutic other than that. And so I felt by giving an opportunity to extensionally state that without it being in a context where it's accusatory, because I was the one bringing it up to bury that hatchet, I think it made it clear. So I think it's almost like we want to unbury the hatchet at this point.
What hatchet?
I had the hatchet. Father Joseph didn't have the hatchet.
I had no hatchet.
It was coming up at that time in the show, which is why he started writing back on the com box.
Yeah, somebody said that on Twitter. They were like, "Well, you shouldn't have mentioned him, or he wouldn't have appeared." I'm like, "Oh, so he's like Beetlejuice. If I say his name, he'll
Yeah,
just show
but
up."
let's be fair. He has to have an invite, unless Patrick posts it on the stream like you do here.
No. When he started coming up, he was writing back in the middle of the show. His YouTube handle is FPH.
How did he get
Nothing
it?
in between.
No. But what I'm saying, to get on StreamYard, you have to send a
and
link.
then I sent an invite over Facebook Messenger.
Well, I'm telling people
watching in the middle of it.
Yeah, I'm just telling people because some people don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just telling people how it technically works.
Yeah. No, it's I don't even know how Father Joseph is able to get 5 people on the same time, but good.
Well, I have to.
He's loaded.
I asked. That's why I asked for donations, because this actually costs me. I have the 10-person stream, so the point is it costs. These things cost money. I'm not loaded with cash.
I just want to clear up the idea that the accusation that there was foul play, like there's some sort of conspiracy. I was hitting up the new catacombs, evangelists, other people come up on the true Orthodox side. And I was trying to keep, and I think I successfully kept at the time more than equal for Father Joseph.
Did you ask Father Joseph? Did you ask Father Joseph?
The questions are definitely much more severe on the WR side than the TO side, because you were a guest to my channel. I wasn't going to try to corner you. So the accusations against me, I feel, are just unwarranted, which I keep asking people, where's the timestamps of this? They don't have any.
Well, I'm going to be honest.
We could go by.
I'm going to be honest, Patrick.
What do you want?
To me, personally, this is not Father Joseph or anybody else. To me, it seemed poor form not to give Father Joseph a heads up about Father Peter. That's just outside looking in.
It was a literal, just like there's no heads up. You guys are coming on when I just came here.
Yeah,
it was just a split-second decision.
That's how this show works.
It was a split-second decision.
But I'm just saying, from outside looking in.
Everyone appeared happy with it. It was a major payday for Father Joseph's channel when he uploads this thing. It's got a lot more attention, and he wasn't supposed to stay on.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying outside looking in.
He was mentioned by name. I brought him on. Everyone thought that was fun. That's just good YouTubing.
When you have Father Peter speaking, right? You have Father Peter speaking, and he answers a question that's dealing with true Orthodox issues. And then when Father Joseph tries to respond to that, you say, well, you weren't asked that question. And then you interrupt him. That's the problem.
Bring the timestamp of that concern, because I can only remember,
Craig.
Because the only example that there was someone, the fact that he even showed it shows I was being fair. Someone made an accusation against Father Peter, and it was directed to him. He answered it, and then Father Joseph wanted some sort of rejoinder to something that wasn't directed to him. And if you notice, with all the questions and answers after, again, it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes into the show, so the show was going very long.
If it's
you should have less topics. 2020 hindsight.
Again, it wasn't like a round table that was given to everyone to respond. I let everyone respond once to something.
I know you're going to do the timetable thing, but the thing with it was
timetable. That's a round table.
You know, he was talking about Canon 15, and Father Joseph wanted to respond to that, and you interrupted him.
Well, and it was again, just like
I think. Well, hold on. Unseen Warfare.
I think the last word on many things.
And Unseen Warfare. I think Patrick has trouble hearing some people on, like even on this one. I think he's having trouble hearing like you and possibly me. So it might just be technical issues too. I mean, I've been on plenty of StreamYards where it kind of kicks out or does weird things or kicks people out. So I'll give him benefit of the doubt. But outside looking
I think
in,
you're being very, very charitable, Reader John. But the main thing
I try to be sometimes.
Everyone, Father Joseph was given the last word on many things. Just because he wasn't given the last word on every single issue isn't unfair, because you can't get into all the audience questions if you do that.
Wait a second. I never asked for that. And I'm getting a little tired of insinuations that I was asking for a lot more stuff. In the first place, the comparison to this show has been on for over a year. Everybody knows you can click live on the chat. We've had to throw out pornographers. We've had to deal with people who wanted to curse us out.
Sedevacantis.
Yeah, but we didn't mind him because he was retarded.
He's kind of funny.
It was the point I'm trying to make is that the idea of this show is that it is meant to be an open forum. To imply that was the same thing we were doing over there is
not
unfair.
true.
It's not fair at all.
No one's applying this. I don't understand this critique here.
Because if it was an open panel, I would have jumped on, and I can think of at least 2 other people would have jumped on.
Nobody could have jumped on. It was a closed panel.
I know, that's the point. That's the point I'm making.
I wasn't looking for a chance to respond to everything in edgewise. But the point is...
But then in that event, then Unseen's critique here is irrelevant because the fact that you didn't get the opportunity to respond, you just said it's not something you were looking for.
No, but
I didn't do anything unfair when I went to the next question.
But hey, Unseen, let him finish, and then you can jump on.
Because you feel like you have more.
But you just contradicted Father Joseph, Unseen.
Ridiculous. It was disrespectful. You should have let him.
I think it's disrespectful that he interrupted Father Joseph.
Peter Harris, and you're not going to talk about him.
What?
Yeah, it's my question. You contradicted and you interrupted Father Joseph.
Who interrupted Father Joseph?
Father Peter.
Yeah, I know.
No, Unseen did just here. You said, Father, that you weren't looking for an opportunity to respond each time. I said, and that's what I did. I'm not implying that you're supposed to have that.
I think you should have had.
Contradicted you.
I think he should have had a 9-minute closing statement.
You've purposely jumped in front of him and you tried to, interrupt him as he was trying to, correct the narrative.
No, I don't know that at all. That's the thing. People know things about.
15, it's not obligatory to break from heretical hierarchs, and it is true.
We already discussed Canon 15 several times during the stream.
Well, you know what upset me about the whole Canon 15 discussion? If we want to talk about brass tacks,
Craig. So why couldn't he say that it's obligatory, according to the commentaries, that you are supposed to break from them?
Well, and here's the thing.
Let Father Peter go on, and then you switch to Father John, and then you ask a slanted question right afterwards.
The slanted question was about Saints and Kovalskill.
Wait, hold on, guys.
I think question about Saints and Kovalskill.
Guys, hold on. Patrick, hold on.
Conversation. One moment. We can't have a respectful conversation when it's accusatory, where Father Joseph even said right here in front of you a minute ago that I wasn't looking for the last word for everything. I gave the accusatory question. 1 second. I gave the accusatory question to Father Peter. Father John had some sort of pastoral question. And then Father Joseph had a question about Saints and Kovalskill, which is not accusatory. I'm being accused here of being unfair. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And then I think I know how a solution. Let's actually talk about the content, like the Canon 15 stuff. Nobody talked about the full extent of Canon 15, where it actually talks about people that are complicit in promoting the heresy. Nobody even mentioned that.
Yeah, and then that's the importance. If you look at the transcript, you can click Control F.
You look at the commentaries.
Yeah, well, my point
nobody
is
brought up the
F.
commentaries.
Why is that?
I'm not disagreeing with you on this. My point is,
I know.
If you click Control F and you put down Canon 15, it came up many times in our stream, and it's regrettable if
in the live chat,
of this was not covering the details you bring up as it should have been.
Yes.
And again,
well, that's not your fault.
3 hours.
That's not your fault, though. I'm not accusing you. What I'm saying is, if something needed to be fleshed out, I mean, here's a good this constructive criticism.
Sure.
If you think, or if the whole panel thought, if something needed to be fleshed out more, I would have dropped some of the things like, do you think ROCOR is liberal? That's kind of stupid, and to be honest.
No, what do you mean that's stupid?
It's kind of, I mean, if we're talking more about
and Father Joseph during it was nodding his head. He would have his head in the back of the wall.
Well, wouldn't you agree with broken? Wouldn't you agree breaking with bishops?
About with me nodding my head?
Would breaking with bishops be a little more important than if a ROCOR MP is more liberal?
Actually, not necessarily. Here's why. Because what we had with Father John Whiteford, he's a ROCOR clergyman.
Yes.
All right. And so the question is, to really kind of throw a softball for the true Orthodox is, is it the true Orthodoxy change, or did roll call change, right? Because that would justify why people are, I'm not going along with this. And so that was something, while Canon 50 came up many times, no one brought that up. I'm the one who brought that up. Again, this biased moderator that's body slamming Father
I'm
Joseph.
not attacking you. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I'm making this point. And
Okay.
so Canon 50 came up. Of course, in a 3-hour stream with that many topics, we could not cover everything on that.
That's my constructive criticism, though. I would have dropped some things to delve into things more.
But I stand by. I think that question
for future,
and whether liberalized, should have been brought up, and it was one of the advanced questions everyone agreed upon, and it was
okay.
It was
but I'm just saying for your future live streams, if it feels like the whole panel wants to delve into it more, I would go with it. You know. And what's the thing about the
2 hours? But yeah, I feel like we're right in the beginning.
I tell you what.
Yeah.
I had a problem with Father John Whiteford's complicity with Sergianism. He couldn't see how Sergianism was a problem per se.
To be fair,
Father Sergius is a traitor to the church, and so he's just kind of hemming and hawing about it.
Well,
I don't understand that.
To be fair, Father, he admitted on the live stream that he hadn't really delved into the subject,
that's a problem too, because the subject is how old? 80 years?
Yeah, which
90?
surprised me because he quickly dismissed the Matrokin archives because British intelligence was involved.
I want to concur with Father Boniface because I actually brought this up to Father John Whiteford. Again, the supposed biased moderator. I said, as a media, I don't know enough about roll call. I'm pretty new to roll call, and
you were Antiochian, right?
8 years. I've been around since before the Union. 10 years after is when I became Orthodox. But I said, but when I read, it's not like the internet didn't exist before the Moscow Union, right? There's lots of roll call stuff from before the Union on the website, on the internet.
Yeah, that's why
I brought up when you read roll call stuff from the older websites, it's pretty categorically and explicitly against Sergianism. And it seems to me today, and I'm totally open to correction because again, I am in ROCOR.
Yeah, but you haven't been in there very long. That's why I'm cutting you some slack because you're an Antiochian guy.
But again, I'll accept correction from the pro-MP folks. But it seems to me, without bias, that there's been a change in ethos, and that's exactly what I said.
That's why I left. I was a ROCOR MP.
Yeah, Sergius had a heresy named after him.
and so the problem is that the problem is compliance with the state, and so therefore abiding with state propaganda, and that's an issue that rolls right over into the United States of America too. This is a broad issue, and so if a person cannot see the lies and the deception and the murders and those issues, along with the old calendar issue with what was going on in Greece, if they can't see those things, it's a church state issue, which is a glaring issue.
The secondary issue.
And so therefore, when you have compliance with the state and people dying and stuff like that, it's just like a callousness that I told Father Swayden in my pro-life work.
Joseph.
We would do Proverbs 24, 11, and 12, where it says, if you neglect to hear the voice of those that are being led forth to death, that's a major problem. If you don't speak up for them, that's a major problem. It goes for the unborn. It goes for those being persecuted and put to death by the government. And so, Can
I ask Father Boniface now? That's a moral issue. Could you help clear up how it's ecclesiastical issue so that we could tie it to doctrine?
Well, I think I was going to ask Father Joseph about that because I think he made a perfect example of why it's a theological issue.
Okay, if you could clear that up.
Murder is a theological issue because it destroys the image of God in man.
I think he was talking about Sergianism. One of the saints right now about why Sergianism is more than just a moral issue. This is it says Sergianism for many escapes the accusation of heresy because they are looking for some heresy. But here's the very soul of all heresies: rejection from the true church and alienation from true faith and her mysteries and nature. Here's a sin against the mystical body church. Here's a replacing it with a shadow and a bare scheme, the bone skeleton of discipline. Here as heresy with a capital letter, for every heresy distorts the teaching of the church, but here we have a distortion of the church itself with all its teachings. So it's a major heresy. And Sergius pointed out parishes to bomb and people to send to prisons and kill. And we have proof of this.
What's your thoughts, Patrick?
If orthodoxy is a mixture of rationalism and being and doing works, faith and works, right? There's a mixture. They have to combine and be wedded to one another properly. Okay, so then therefore, can we just talk about issues on a faith rationalistic issue? Well, how do people behave and respond? Excuse me, let me finish my point. How do people respond in faith? What do their works say and act out in response to the faith? You cannot divorce the two. We can't sit around and debate about theological issues. We also have to look at the behavior of those who took various positions. And so if you take a position and you behave a certain way, that's telling what your faith is. And so that's the point. If you take a position on Sergianism and you behave one way or the other, that is defining your faith.
And then Patrick, I think, is trying to tie together why it's an ecclesiological issue.
Right.
Can you expound on that, Father Boniface?
Before we expound on that, I'm jumping in here because I have a few things I have to note, if it's okay.
No, you're fine. I was trying to get you back in.
The first one is that I think, Patrick, this helps demonstrate that we do not all hold the same position. Obviously, Unseen felt that it was a much more heavy-handed treatment than I did. I, however, did not say that it wasn't altogether heavy-handed. I simply said that more opportunities were needed to speak. It's not a binary to me. Everyone here has a different position on what they thought of the debate because we have never talked about it. And in that, I'd like to once again point out that if anyone would like to support the channel, we at NFT need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at NFT.net on GiveSendGo or with crypto. And with that, I'd like to welcome Sunrise to the chat, who has been here but has not been able to say anything. But
come on, Sunrise.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something to Craig, if that's okay, Father.
Sure.
So Craig, I made a comment pretty early into your stream telling you to stop interrupting Father. I kind of wanted just to clarify. I know that you said the reason for that is because you said that Father Joseph was kind of making a personal attack on Father John. And while I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, I just wanted to say that I can kind of respect that. And I just wanted to clarify that in my comment. I understand why you were saying that. And I didn't want to, seem harsh when I was telling you to stop interrupting Father. I mean, I just wanted to say that I understand why you were maybe doing that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'd rather be wrong for the right reason than right for the wrong reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that because I felt like it maybe came across wrong. So,
well, can I ask Father Joseph something, and then Patrick, Father Joseph, how did you define Sergianism? Because I think I liked it a lot.
Let me see if I can actually remember the exact wording.
Something about Christ and Antichrist.
Effectively be by basically submitting your obedience to Antichrist, in order to serve Christ. You're effectively nullifying your own faith. You're serving the devil to serve
because you're compromising under temporal powers. Yeah. Right.
But it's under the claim of serving God. So it's under the pretense of piety. So it is the ultimate deception, the fact that effectively you're serving Satan, but claiming you're serving Christ at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that's why we called it a heretical issue. Now,
Here's what challenges me, because I'm not trying to make excuses or apologetic. I've been reading on this issue, the old Rocor websites for a few years.
I would just say keep reading. Keep reading. It's deep.
It's just that, right? So you respect, right? These are the recent saints of Rocor. Sure. And if they're not, they knew the recent saints of Rocor, right? So it's not like this stuff was being published and St. Philaret, St. Seraphim Rose, like they didn't know this stuff was being talked about and they weren't condemning this stuff.
Well, and they have Saint Joseph of Petrograd still on their calendar, but Moscow rejects Saint Joseph of Petrograd.
Well, luckily, Rocor could locally canonize saints, but
well, they had him. He was there way before the Union. So
but I guess, but here's the point I was trying to make. So I'm not saying this to try to make an apologetic or excuse. I still want to understand, because when I've been reading about Sergianism, and so I'm reading from the people that are against it, people that I respect, and I just don't get the doctrinal part, in as much how its difference between, let's say, the kowtowing of the Greek patriarchates with the Turks, the kowtowing. Again, and limited kowtowing. I don't want to make this like it's existential and they did everything wrong. But there's degrees of kowtowing with the Turks, degrees of kowtowing with Peter the Great. And so, right, like, again, this is my weakness as a historian, right? You read about the history of the church going all the way back down to the imperial church, right?
I think if you read all the sources...
So you start seeing like these political machinations almost being the historical norm. And there's lots of bad people involved with these political machinations. So I guess here's what I'm looking for, which would help me understand. And you don't have to know it now. It's not supposed to be a gotcha question. But here's what I'm actually authentically, personally looking for, which would be, what is the crucial difference between Sergianism and the Turks, Peter the Great, stuff with the Byzantine Empire? And the reason I say why is because none of those have names of anyone attached to them. But Sergianism has Sergianism, right? So it seems it's got to be at some higher specific level.
Well, I think Russians just like naming stuff. Yeah, I think Russians just like naming stuff.
Joseph.
Yeah, the answer to that question is, and again, the fact that we're still including Peter the Great in this just testifies to how well the Soviets propagandized even our school systems.
Just to be fair, I've never read that propaganda
at all.
It was just from my own reading of history without even reading Orthodox apologetics. That's why I mentioned the Turks. It's just my own brain turning.
I know this might blow your mind here, but I knew that. My point was that the Soviet propaganda was so large that it is a mainstream idea that Peter the Great was effectively worse than Ivan the Terrible. He wasn't. I'm not going to say he was the best of all czars. I certainly wasn't, but I certainly saw in this discussion an opportunity to point out that he had some advantages, and the church certainly didn't view him as Antichrist or anything like that, the way modern writers do. There's a person in our chat who loves comparing him to Antichrist.
Well, he's benevolent to the monastery, so I don't know where they get that.
Yeah,
I mean, if you actually look at the sources, the letters and stuff,
he made money off the monastery, so of course he treated them well.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was the state and the church kind of.
So I think at the root of some of the issue, is worship. Who do you worship? Caesar wanted people to worship him, and the church didn't, and there were martyrs that were made. Okay, so you have the same issue. Worship. Worship the Soviet state, worship the Turks, worship Muhammad, or God, and Jesus Christ. And if you commit to Jesus Christ, you're going to get your head chopped off. So that's the issue.
Father, I think actually you just hit on something well, but muddled the issue at the same time. And what I mean by that is that you are correct in pointing out that unlike the Soviets, with each of these things, whether it's the Roman state and you had to worship the pagan gods, whether it's the Islamic state and you had to worship Muhammad and you didn't, Peter the Great doesn't count here because he was Orthodox. The point is that they demanded worship of false entities that were not Christ. With the Soviets, however, and with Sergianism, they equate them.
Yeah,
the churches, our sorrows, the church's sorrows,
the glories of the
state's sorrows. The Soviet state's joys are the church's joys.
Yeah,
you've now equated Sovietism with Christ itself, which is kind of what the goal was. So
that's where
you have in the Old Testament Jeroboam. He set up a similar worship system in Dan and Beersheba. The same system, same rubric, same probably liturgical garb, same everything, excepting that it was in the wrong city and he was violating the command of God. So it's the same thing but different place and disorderly. These deceptions are there, and they have been there. Cain set up a false worship system and imitating God, but offered the wrong sacrifices. And so therefore, you're always going to have infiltration. Sometimes it's, and that's what the Apostle Paul was talking about. You know, people are going to come in within the church and create these divisions and draw people away and things like that. So yes, it's very subtle, but it's obvious that the state in its hidden aspect was satanic, and it was requiring people to eventually bow down and worship Satan. And so they couch it in the names of Christ. It's like Deuteronomy 13, where God sends false prophets into the nation to test the people whether they would hold on to good doctrine or not. And so we're always being tested. And so there are some examples right there from the Old Testament.
And I think
it's the subtlety. That's the difficulty for me.
Well, I think with Peter the Great, it might make it easier. With Peter the Great, he was working with the Orthodox Church, right? But you never heard anybody call Peter the Great like part of the God fighting, the God fighting. What do they call them? The God fighting government or something like that. It's in the old Roquefort prayer book. God fighting authorities. Yeah, there you go. So I would say the problem with Sergius, or Metropolitan Sergius, was that he was conflating the joys of the church with the joys of the God-fighting authorities.
Yeah, he betrayed Orthodoxy.
Let's not forget the Soviet government, at its fundamental, was an atheist.
Wanted to exterminate religion.
Right.
Yeah, they wanted.
He caused the martyrdom of thousands of confessors.
What was the proper term? The Theomachus?
Yeah, Theomachus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say my own personal difficulty is just the subtlety. Like with Arianism vis-a-vis anything that's not Arian, you could identify it. Monothelitism, iconoclasm, you could identify it. Protestant justification versus ours, like there's clear things. And I think, like what Father Boniface says, not all of this is purely the intellect, right?
Well,
and so for me, the intellect part, I could see what they're talking about when you're reading stuff from the 1960s into the 1990s. But I can't identify where, if I were to explain this to, let's say, my wife, to someone who's not Orthodox at all, I wouldn't even know how to explain it to tie in the doctrinal part. So intellectually, that's why I don't get it. It's the subtlety where I can't identify the concrete difference, right?
Well, and that's going to be
and again, I'm not apologize for the Soviets because they killed so many more people, but I can't identify the concrete theological difference.
Okay, what it is, this is the difference. So it's a patriarch that's posing as a patriarch, but he's really a KGB agent. Okay, so it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's in the scriptures. So when he's sitting here and he's pointing out churches to bomb and he's just playing the facade of a patriarch, he's not really that. Inwardly, he's satanic. So I mean, how can I don't understand how you could.
Yeah, as a historian.
Well, Craig, I think the issue is that we're the frog in the pot. We all are, and we have to discern our ways out of that pot, and that takes some courage, and it takes a willingness to separate oneself from these compromisers and strike a path that can be lonely, that can lose jobs or friends and affiliations, but nevertheless, God honors it. And that's the whole kind of point of my journey has been that. And coming into true Orthodoxy, I've never seen greater light and greater joy amidst the sufferings. And so it's taking on the road of the cross. And I think that enters into this dialogue is that are these people willing to take up the cross and follow Christ? And the problem is that it takes guts, it takes courage, it takes faith, because it can mean your very life. And that's the issue.
And Father Boniface,
historically speaking, the the parts that would need to be fleshed out in a conversation from whomever else, whenever else, wherever else, would be the issues of synods and resistance, because we have that in history.
Yeah.
And non-commemoration, because we have that in history. And then whether that's what we have in true orthodoxy or not. I think that would be the case that have to be made.
It's interesting how
why was Roquefort in communion with old calendars?
Yeah.
Why did they give them ordination?
I don't hear unseen.
Unseen warfare. Can you speak a little louder?
Refresh your computer.
No, I think you just need to get closer to his mic.
Loud and clear.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, why was Roquefort in communion with the old calendars? Have you thought about that?
Oh
Why
yeah,
did they give them ordinations.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with that. I think to do so would be to disown Roquefort history.
Yeah, that's true.
On that, I will say this because there are actually people in Roquefort MP who do disown that history. Just not saying you are, but there are people.
I mean, my bishop doesn't.
Right, and that's good, but he's in the minority. But more importantly, I'm sorry, I'm just saying, I'm calling it like it is. But okay, the bigger problem I have here is that we read every comment that comes on the channel, and I haven't read one for the past 45 minutes. So I'm going to try to go through them really fast and see if there was any questions to answer before we get right back to it. So, have you heard, Reconquista says, have you heard of the demon people from all over the world see dark figure with hat? Aaron Rodgers apparently did drugs and has been seeing the dark figure.
Yeah, he's taking that IAS stuff, that
he's smoking the toad.
Brain.
Yeah, he's licking the toad. Okay. Absolutely based from Maximos. John A. Glory to God, many years. Sarah from Webster. Could I, as a GOCK, commune in Roquefort A? Yes, you're in communion. Yes. Beef Council says, I broke away from my Baptist background a year ago to move into Orthodoxy due to the truth of it being convincing. Now all this is true in World Orthodoxy has me just confused all over again. It's disheartening. The truth of the matter is that if you actually walk into a true Orthodox church after being in World Orthodoxy for 5 years, it looks the same. There, maybe there's fewer pews, if any. But the point is, it's the same thing. So please do not think that you've wasted your life because people didn't tell you the truth. That's not your fault. Don't give up on Orthodoxy. It's the tradition of the apostles. That's what I got to say on that one.
We just do it better.
Yeah. All right, sorry, Father, you're right. Bohemian Grove is the gay stuff. Richard Dixon says it was the blankest thing.
Yeah, faggiest place, he said.
Faggiest place, yeah. Gentle Breeze, since there was a question on whether Freemasonry was gay earlier. Gentle Breeze said, today diocese is on the new calendar. Why does pre-2007 Roquefort not fall under the anathemas against the calendar from the 1500s when you claim the new calendar is did in 1925? And that is because of the fact that all of the bishops remained and supported the traditional church calendar, but when they took in parishes that were fleeing, that were
economia,
they used economia and did tell those parishes they would eventually have to change.
Correct.
But they all left and went to other places. What Orthodox is this? Doesn't even seem like EO. I'm just an outsider outside of the pleb question. Moreover, brethren. Yep, it's EO. Roquefort never had any new calendar diocese. That is correct. Gentle Breeze. How is this different in your view from having an Nestorian diocese, a Monophysite diocese, etc.? There's no such thing as among Nestorians they have this.
No, in the World Orthodox they have brought in.
I thought the Nestorians converted the Eastern Orthodox.
That was in the 19th century.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, some came in through the Georgians more recently too, but they came to Eastern Orthodoxy. They didn't retain any. Yeah,
that's not a problem.
Yeah.
GSDK is in communion with Roquefort Fungal. That's true. Isaac says, let's go. I'm checking to see if I missed any member comments that I have to put on the screen. Okay, continue. Let's see. What are we on here? Okay, let's go. 4v1 on Craig. Let's go. LOL.
I like what Seraphim Webster said, though. Is there a list of which synods are in communion with GOCK? I'd like to have a comprehensive list for where I travel and know where I can worship at. And I think what Seraphim Webster is trying to say is, like, right, if you have that network of tangential communion, then you can at least identify.
Are you a layman?
Here is a body of true Orthodox Christianity, like undisputable, because they're all connected this way.
Let me give you an example.
I think that's very important. And
Patrick, let me give you an example. Are you a layman?
Of course, yeah.
So you can go to a Constantinople parish or a Moscow parish. If you are a reader or above, then you have to talk to a bishop.
That's right.
Now, in this case, I want to add to this, Reader John, that this is a technological problem as much as it is a practical one.
Correct. Yeah, that too.
Like, for example, Patrick, you were asking, like, if such a thing existed where you had a list of who was in communion, so on and so forth. In fact, they do in Greece. What they do is they make these yearly calendars, and then those yearly calendars in the back have lists of everyone in this diocese.
Sounds like NFTU needs to AI translate it and make it available in English for people. Because I also think, ultimately speaking, this is how
you can help us, Patrick. You can help us.
Well, WO on their side has to get stuff in order. Right? Right?
Well, they got the Assembly of Churches. They'll be all right.
Right now, with there's nothing to offer with the female deacons and all that stuff. So I'm not trying to say, we have to make a union because there's still all these problems.
That reminds me. I want to give you.
When there's
we're the worst in history. We're the worst Orthodox Christians in history, but we are Orthodox. Right?
So my point is, when there is a opportunity for repentance and there's improvement, and so it makes at least the doctrinal and moral opposition to union something that is no longer pertinent, then we have to start identifying who has to go in union with who in order to fix this. That's why I think it would be important on the communion side to figure that out.
But communion,
external images isn't what we're going for a lot of times either. And
well,
the
unseen
fact of
warfare.
the matter is like Saint Philaret would send letters to the Matthewites, yet they weren't in communion, right? How could they do that? And he's still seen them as a valid church. Was that not a division? You know what I'm saying? So there's a misconception on what canonicity is. It's not.
That's the point I was going to make.
I think more the point is it's just like the Syrian monks that became the Maronites, but before they became the Maronites, they were in this sort of tangential community with Rome and not the rest of the church.
But they were
it's not that we can have these canonical irregularities, but we should. Doesn't mean it will happen in our lifetimes, but we should want to work towards an ideal where we fix heresies and we fix schisms and we don't have these parallel jurisdictions. That's a sign of sickness.
Well, the church does that as a whole.
Yeah, we've been doing that. But I do want to just jump in here. First off, Orthopirate, thank you for supporting the channel with
I like your name.
77 cents. Which hierarchy restored and received the repentant compromisers back into the church after the persecutions under Diocletian?
The Tratadores?
Yeah, they were received back in through the hierarchy that remained confessing and did not fall.
And they had to serve penance and stuff.
Right.
But there was a conflict between two parties leading up to that, right? Mm-hmm. So some didn't want to receive them back, and some.
Well, the Donatists.
That was up to the Donatists.
Yeah, that's what I was leading to. And then we get into donuts. And which nobody left.
And then to throw you guys a bone, like this is the problem today. It's almost like we're right, but we don't want to repent. That's a problem, we have that in Ukraine. With the schismatics in Ukraine, but we don't want to repent. So, like, you could go grant them pretend autocephaly, but what good is that? They didn't repent, and so it's very similar to what the Roman Catholics want with the Eastern Orthodox. They want a union, but without anyone repenting.
But that's a World Orthodox problem.
They call it like reconciliation, but there's that's the wrong R word. It needs to be repentance, not reconciliation.
Yeah, but do you know why that is? The basic reason why that is, Patrick, is because of how the Roman Catholic Church has historically worked. This is just a slightly different form of the negotiations for union they did in 1646.
Honestly, though, their window's closing in 20 years. Even the Roman Catholic Church itself is going to end up getting more conservative, just because look who dies out and who replaces them. And
they almost died out in the early 20th century, didn't they?
Yep.
It's just that they call it the boomer captivity, and it's just the younger generations are rejecting secularism in the world, and they don't have this post-World War II chip on their shoulder where we all got to sing Kumbaya. They're going to stick by their guns.
How many progressive popes have they have?
That's all since World War II. The writing's on the wall for them. So this whole, there might still be, things might still get worse or they get better, like in 2025. Oh, we're in that year now.
I don't think they're going to get better. Yeah, I
like
don't
with
think they're going to get
Nicaea and
better
stuff.
for Rome.
But the point is, not all Orthodoxy is going to capitulate and go join any sort of neo-unia. And even within Roman Catholicism, they're not going to keep going increasingly liberal. I think eventually they're going to go more reactionary.
Depends. I think mileage may vary on that one.
You know what's not often brought up is the divisions in world Orthodoxy.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with those? You know,
I don't think Patrick can speak on all of that.
Fragmented into three major and minor groups. Macedonia has declared itself out of syphilis. I mean, Bulgaria.
I think the thing with Macedonia,
counter churches.
I actually like what happened in Macedonia. And to make it a little personal, there's a Macedonian church in Syracuse, and for a few years we'd drive past it, like, we can't go there, they're not in communion. And then essentially what happened was they repented, at least on paper, right? They went back for one day into communion with Serbia, and then the next day, Serbia granted them autocephaly.
What happened before?
So it took everyone eating humble pie.
What happened before that one day, though, Patrick? Who were they in communion with?
Holy orders and everything?
Who were they in communion with before they came back to Serbia?
I'm not sure who Macedonia actually was in communion with, because, like, right, there's the old calendars, Bulgarians and everything. Nobody. But, like, remember I spoke about this before, though. Historically,
you brought that up in your live stream.
Yeah. We've had synods in resistance. We've had non-commemorators. Like, these things exist in history.
Yeah, but here's the thing with non-commemorators, though, that you guys didn't mention, and I don't know if you even know it. Well, non-commemorators, it's a temporary state.
Yeah,
you're supposed to seek out a confessing bishop.
Yeah, nobody really mentioned it. And that's why in Athos they got issues, because some of this is going on a very long time.
Yes.
And
correct.
We're in this time in history where it's hard to find precedent for some of these things. And
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I would have said the same thing if we're the 16, 17, 1800s and how the Uniats were received back by the Russian Orthodox, right? Just vesting them. Or
not
even
always.
Canons.
That's not always. No, not always.
Canons, but read the canons with the Novatianists. The canons just accept the Novatianists upon repentance, and right? They totally walled off from everyone else.
I think you're going to have to get into the nuances of the history, though, because it's not as clean cut as it's presented.
But the Novatianists, though, they weren't in tangential communion with the church, but yet they were received because they essentially were seen to have valid holy orders. It reminds me of a letter of St. Philaret.
And they repented.
Well, they repented, of course.
Yeah.
But St. Philaret in New York justified the vesting of Uniats, just like he justified receiving Moscow Patriarchate clergy upon repentance. And he said it's because they had the form of ordination. But when they repented and they're received by us, then the Spirit corrects. Essentially, they're now indwelt by the Spirit. It's a very loose paraphrase.
It wasn't that they were coming with grace, and they were receiving.
I'm not arguing that. I'm not
being
polemical about this.
He's agreeing with you.
He's agreeing. Okay. Yeah, he was saying form, not grace.
Yeah. So again, like the form is there. So like again, what God could correct on any of these sides, due to I think the historical example of Novatianists who were around for centuries, seems to be pretty broad. As long as as long as they're doing real baptisms, doing
in the Millennium Schism that
that's very short compared to the Novatianists.
Well, no, but that's what Bartholomew uses to justify the Oku.
Okay, hold on. We'll note this. Hold on, real quick.
Can I give a compliment to Patrick real quick?
I'll take a compliment.
I love what you said about Jeannie Constant.
Yeah, I will say this. Thank you for supporting the channel. Memento Mori. To Craig on Arianism, St. Hilarion points out how the heretic Bishop Auxentius used subtle language to deceive masses and even the emperor.
Yeah, that definitely occurred during the Arian controversy. But at least, we've got 20/20 hindsight, where we can look back and very clearly identify with even precise theological language, this is exactly where they're wrong. And so I don't want to struggle with it. I struggle with that now with Sergianism. I'll probably have to sleep on this discussion tonight because again, you read guys like St. Philaret and they talk about it, right? So you don't want to say, "Oh, he's wrong."
Well,
wait, hold on.
Go ahead, Father Joseph. Sorry.
Evangelist here with a $5 donation. Thank you for supporting the channel. Says we need an ecumenical council to unite true Orthodoxy, conservative world Orthodoxy, reject ecumenism on the new calendar. I would say what's left of world Orthodoxy.
Bishop Maximus.
I would say amen. And again, there need to be stuff put in order, including the calendar issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's and here's the thing: people with weasel words will say, "Oh, well, that because evangelists translate it. That the 1582 council wasn't pan-Orthodox, so it doesn't matter that we don't have this pan-Orthodox condemnation of altering the calendar other than for Pascha." But I just think when spiritually, and Father John Whiteford would agree with this, of course it's wrong. You start losing things like the Apostles' Fast and stuff, right? You start not commemorating saints because their days disappear and things like that.
Well,
clearly that's wrong.
I think it's a ecclesiological issue.
So yeah, it's the calendar issue is important, and I don't think just because something's a local council we could easily discount it because it's a testimony of what faithful Orthodox Christian believers believed.
Well, it broke festal unity.
And the later pan-Orthodox councils, maybe not using the same language, were consistent with the strain of thought. They weren't repudiating that sort of thought. So it's
all right.
I think Evangelos is correct.
I'm actually terrified of just the number of comments we've missed as I go through.
Go ahead, Father.
Comments. There is a valid question here that I do want to put up, and I will try to answer other questions that we have. And this is.
Could you pull up Black Ortho Acolyte though?
That's what I'm pulling up.
Yeah, the 9:43 p.m. one.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not on. I'm not putting it on the screen because it's not a super chat though. But I was going to read it. Conservative world Orthodox are the most hostile towards true Orthodox. Doesn't look good.
Well, let me say this because they're not conservative.
Orthobros hate true Orthodoxy also.
Yeah, the thing is, Orthobros aren't necessarily conservative traditional Orthodox believers. Their opinions on stuff like birth control are very modernist. They have lots of modernist opinions. When it comes to other conservative, let's say world Orthodox, like let's say Father Peter Hears, who isn't bad on those other issues, it's just a matter of sometimes the closer you are, you overreact to things. And I think that's what happens even in the stream that we all just did together on Friday. Is that the closer people are, they feel more betrayed over, I think, less significant points of difference or points of emphasis. And we have to be careful not to do that. So I went on tonight, and I'm not in bed. I tend to go to bed early. Because what we shouldn't be doing is being accusatory, because the whole point of the endeavor was to try to have this positive forward dialogue, not like in the lame way, but in a real way where we talk about real issues, but we move forward in a positive direction. And maybe it wasn't perfect, but that's the point. And the last thing we should be doing is, axing one another on the question, I think.
I think that's some of the problem that I brought up about the frog in the pot. It's like people are using this language to attack the church by saying you're not being nice, you're not friendly, and you always get these accusations, and I got them against them in my issues. I had them big time. And so it's like people will say, when you're holding to truth, you're going to get that stuff. And I think one of the shockers of our culture now is the fact that we're realizing how blatantly lying the government was doing to the American people, especially the Biden administration. And I do believe Trump also, but I'm just saying the lying that the government's putting forward now, and also the lying that was taking place in the Bolshevik time and Sergianism. And so we can't succumb to their accusations of you're just a bunch of mean people. No, we are actually loving, but we're holding on to truth, and we're being tenacious about it because it honors God. God is the one that we're accountable to, and it's actually God who loves men, who desires peace, and we're going to have peace through truth and through proper praxis, proper action.
I think harsh words need to be said sometimes. I mean, our Lord flipped the tables of the money changers. It can't always be nice,
Father Joseph.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I feel bad. There's even questions here.
Keep going, Father.
I'm trying. Craig, since when is it okay to bring in a parasynagogue like yours as some sort of authority to make Father John in your case for you? What authority does he have to teach? I believe that's a reference to his bishop.
Well, two things quick. He
Patrick
wasn't
wrote that
brought
up.
on to speak for Father John. He was supposed to be taken off. So like that wasn't the point.
Naughty Patrick.
And the second is, I think I can't get to details, but I think the sort of supposed irregularities in his Episcopal situation are overblown, and that's why I'm not concerned.
No, I don't know. Who does he actually serve liturgy?
I think he can celebrate that same.
Well, that's celebration. Does he actually serve liturgy
Yeah, he's
under
talking
a
about
bishop?
who's bishop's antimons, right? Like, is he entrusted with?
Oh, we've got Elevation Monastery coming in. That would be Vladika Lazar of Niagara. That's
Master Bless.
Okay, he's not on yet.
He's got his computer isn't letting him on yet.
May the Lord bless. Christ is born.
Glorify him.
Glorify him. I got a concrete example of what I just spoke about. Okay, so I'm a pro-life activist. I've done it for 30 years. In front of abortion clinics, you'll have people who say to the women going in, "You are murdering your child." And then you will have people say, "You're speaking nasty to that person. You have to love them, and you have to say other kinds of words." And so then the people who say you're taking the life, you're murdering your child, are speaking truth. And truth is important when you have 10 seconds to talk to a person before they walk through the door. And so you hit them hard to try and stop their action from what they're doing. But then you'll have people on the pro-life side who will tell you to please pipe down, be quiet, or I'm leaving, or I don't want to talk with you, and whatever. Well, that's some of the conflict that we're looking at. You're going to have people say the same thing about true Orthodoxy. You're being mean, you're being nasty, blah, 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 blah. And so therefore, we don't want to associate with you. Well, are we willing to take the stand for truth and suffer the consequences or not? And the thing is that if I say to a person, you're taking the life of the child and God will deal with you accordingly, you need to repent right now and don't go in. I will help you. I offered a lady $1,500 one time to pay for her child care. She didn't want it. So anyway, this is the conflict.
I guess the point is, right, we agree with that, but maybe the problem would be taking that energy and with the other protester in front of the abortion clinic saying, "I don't like how you're protesting," and getting on their case. It's a waste. That could be something that's not helpful. We don't want to.
And from you mentioned you were gonna, if you wanted to like shout out anything before you, I know you mentioned you were gonna go.
Yeah, but I gotta go. In fact, my battery's going dead, and I gotta go to bed, and I got work tomorrow. I'll just say, with the debate, people gotta take down the temperature a little bit, try to get the information out of it. That was the point. Try to understand what happened as charitably as possible. Because honestly, being attacked for trying to do something productive is kind of a pain for me. So I would appreciate that.
I think you're full of it, truthfully. But
wow.
Hey, no. That's not being charitable.
I'll let you guys hash it out. Well, anyway, have a good night. Thank you. Pray for me.
Good. Good to talk
thank you
to you,
for your
Patrick.
time, buddy.
Have a good night. God bless you.
Christ is born.
Okay. Well, that was that was an interesting close there, Unseen.
Unseen, naughty unseen warfare.
I didn't see that coming, but anyway, I got to get to some comments. We have a lot of. Oh, there's another one. Okay, hold on.
Father.
This one's for Father Boniface. Give me 1 second. So first off, I will thank you for. If I can pull it up. Thank you for sending that to support the channel for $4.99. Seth Williams says pro-life is a failed movement. Research the abolitionist movement. What do you think, Father? Do you know what he's talking about?
A little bit. Okay, so in certain aspects it is a failed movement, but in other respects it isn't. I'll give you an example. We did a sit-in a clinic in Philadelphia, and we took it to the courts, and our attempt was to, through the court process, see if we could overturn certain laws, okay? So therefore, we presented what was called the justification defense, that we were justified in breaking a lower law in order to uphold a higher law. Well, we presented that argument, and the judge refused to hear the justification defense, which is a valid argument in court, but he refused to hear it. In other words, that was a miscarriage of justice. And so we fought, and the court fought back, and they beat us up and didn't allow the truth to be heard. Now, I'll give you another example. That was in Philadelphia. Now, later on, years later, in Texas, there was an abortion clinic where they found babies in the dumpster. So they did a sit-in there. And when they did the sit-in, when they went to court, they said, we are going to present the justification defense, okay? And when they presented it, the court said that they would hear it. And so then the abortion clinic dropped their charges immediately because they knew that if the defense would be heard, it would most likely win and therefore set precedent. So they dropped their case so that would not progress. So my point is this: are we looking for success to stop abortion? Well, it has been tried. The world has fought back, and they have kept aborting. And even the scriptures say that, you know, they will keep doing their murderings and their adulteries and everything like that. And so to say that the pro-life movement is a fail is a kind of a broad brush where there's not a lot of information that's being brought forward, because we tried, and that's what happened. So what do you call that? And so therefore, abolitionist movement, they're hard-hitting. I know about it a little bit. There are some people here in Lakeland that are coming to the clinic in Lakeland and banging on that door and saying that stuff. But nevertheless, you're not going to stop abortion unless you change the hearts of the people. It isn't going to be won in court. It has to be won in the hearts of people. And the hearts of America are hardened. And so I think judgments are coming down. Let's say Los Angeles could be a very good example of that. But so try the abolitionist movement? No. And I don't like the word abolitionist because of its
I've never even heard of it,
associations. Father. Yeah, associations with the war between the states. And abolitionist movement? I don't know. I've just known about it, but I haven't been to the clinic in Lakeland for a long time due to various issues. But I have been on the front lines in clinics, you know, for many, many years. But so, you know, to try and get all this stuff overturned, of course, Donald Trump was a compromiser, and Amy Coney Bryant, the great, you know, opportunity, she went to the Free Masonic University of Tennessee, you know, which is now called what, Bryan College or something. Look up the name of that college she went to. The former name was the Free Masonic University of Tennessee. So what does that tell you about her?
Wow.
So, you know, there's so much compromise. Donald Trump is actually pro-abort. His wife is pro-abort. Melania, she came out with a book, you know. And so, you know, it's the nation needs to repent. And is America going to repent? Well, maybe we need some more calamities, because right now it does not look good. But so therefore, I dismiss that criticism, because the abolitionists think that they're going to get somewhere. I don't think so. We need the preaching of the gospel, and especially the Orthodox faith, and the honoring of authority, which America doesn't do. Whatever. I can go on forever. So there. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well,
thank you, Father.
That case, thank you, Father.
Excuse my ambience, by the way. My power's out in the house.
I was wondering about that. Why is the room red?
I got 2 candles going.
That was kind of groovy looking.
That's what it is. Here.
Very
kind of psychedelic, Father. You're not doing anything with toads over there, are you?
You may have a candle, but do you have?
I got 2 of them. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, but you don't have the NFTU.
How's the light now?
Don't have the NFTU lamp. All right. Anyway.
There you go.
But
No
okay.
DNA.
So I've got I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna just put it to a vote for people watching. Do you want me to read every comment, or do you want me to just start over?
Just hit the questions. Let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna try to hit the questions. Let me just see if I remember. Let's try. Is there a list of communion with the GOCK? That list would probably be on their calendar, which I don't believe is available outside of print.
Ask the bishop.
Yeah, ask your bishop. That's because he'll tell you. Soviet government was Adrian Wyatt says Soviet government was not just atheists but theomachus, and they were Judeo-Bolsheviks dominated by apostates from Babylonian Talmudic Judaism, honoring Judas Iscariot with a monument. Yeah. I didn't know there was a monument to Judas.
Yeah, there was. Patrick will figure it out if he reads more history. He'll be all right.
John A. Is the female deacon in Alexandria Patriarchate still serving liturgies? I believe she is, and I think she has a friend. There's 2 or 3 of them now.
They're trying to get more. Yep.
Yeah. Andrew Camus asks, if being in communion with a heretic before council is participation in heretic, were those who did not break with Origen heretics? Origen was even controversial in his day. I highly recommend reading the tripartite history. It's not like he was just loved by everyone and then suddenly hated by the church 200 years later.
Well, Theodore and Mopsestuous and Origen, all them, their writings were condemned later.
Yep.
So...
Origen didn't control entire synods. Would a jurisdiction that adheres to patristic calendar and isn't in the WCC and doesn't have a Sergianist patriarch exist? It could, but it doesn't exist now.
Not anymore.
If Rome gets better, then World Orthodoxy can officially unite. That's DTC. If Rome becomes more conservative, World Orthodox can finally unite to their lost brothers. I just think their plan is going to be much more sinister but plain.
I think Patrick's wrong. I think it's going to get super progressive.
I think so too. The institution has been set up.
It's going to be so progressive, they're going to be Protestants.
Hold on. Give me a second.
They're going to be satanic. They already are.
What's your take? What is your take on this, Politica Lazar?
On what?
What's your take on this, on the kind of the Rome World Orthodoxy situation and how this
playing out?
Yeah.
Rome World Orthodoxy. Well, we all know that the calendar in 1924 was an initiative to a closer union with Rome. That was the start of it. And it's steamrolling ahead to the Catholics desperately want to be more united with the Orthodox. And the Orthodox, of course, in Greece caved in 1924, and it's been a snowball effect since then. 2016, the meeting in Havana was another high water mark where, there you had the beloved patriarch and the Holy Pope sit down and sister churches and 2 lungs, and Rome has always been aggressive. I come from a mixed uniate background, so I know all about their tactics and what they did to us in Eastern Slovakia. And it's been one campaign, and it's increasing, and it's going to get worse. And they are deceivers, liars. That's all I can say. Okay. And for all this love and holding hands and hoping for this, no. They're after one thing, and that is to come under the Vatican.
Well, Master, haven't you experienced the Eastern Catholicism that thinks they're Orthodox in communion with Rome? I believe we talked about this.
Yes, when I was a student in Rome at the Uniate Seminary, a friend of mine said to me, when you go back to Toronto, be very careful of a certain group of Eastern Ukrainian Catholics. And they said because they parade around in Orthodox garments, they tell people they're Orthodox. And so, but they found me. I did not find them. And it was only after I realized they kept inviting me, and I thought, oh, these are the people that my friend was telling me about. And sheep's in wolf's clothing. And actually, they mocked my own people. They said, oh, you Ruthenians, you Rusins, you're just Ukrainians. You don't want to admit it. And they're very insulting. And so their official line actually is, we are Orthodox in union with Rome.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, do you think people are going to really believe that? If union with Rome means you're not Orthodox, like it cancels out. So I don't understand but a lot of people don't know this, and so they think, oh, they are Orthodox in union with Rome. How wonderful! I can be Orthodox and be under the Pope at the same time. Yeah, it's just nonsense.
I fell for that. Yes.
Naughty father.
I was a Roman Catholic, and I was looking at Orthodoxy, and someone pointed that out when I almost got disowned by my family, and I was like, I called up the Uniate priest and asked, since the Filioque is not in our creed, do I have to believe it? And he's like, I guess not. So I was like, okay. So that's what I did for like 2 years before, the event happened and I became Orthodox. Let me see here. Go ahead.
No, they are, be very careful. They are sheep's and wolf clothing, and they will deceive. There's, but it's all about nationalism. It's all national. It's all about, it's a very ethnocentric church. And just beware. Just beware.
I think that Patrick Craig, that's a point that I was trying to put across to him, is what we were saying is that they're wolves in sheep's clothing. There's deception. There's blatant lying like never before. And I think the American mindset is very naive to that. And they have to wake up. And I think that the politics, the way they have been, is starting to wake people up even more and more. There needs a lot more to be done, but just that's I think one of the major issues that the church needs to look at today is, and to wash out of their minds and get the proper doctrine settled in, and to push out the lies and deception.
He's looking for everything to be packaged very pretty for him, and it's like, well, where is the exact ecclesiology, or what
are you talking about, Patrick?
Makes it a heresy?
Yeah,
and it's like, you discern things based on your faith,
But you have to kind of to humanize him a little bit. His background, I believe, was Catholic, wasn't it, Father?
No, it was actually Protestant.
So it's Protestant.
People assume that because of his, his.
Okay, so he was Protestant, and he was a catechumen. Then he was with the Antiochians, and very recently he went to Rocourt, right? So he hasn't even been around that long to know a lot of the ins and outs, and that's why he was kind of pleading ignorance, because he does have ignorance about certain things.
Yeah, he converted, I think, like 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to get caught up by appearances, and they seem strong, and they seem like everything's all good on the outside, but on the inside, there's a major problem there.
Yeah,
and plus the understanding of the poison of the American ethos of the cultural Protestantism, and its attack on monarchy, its attack on authority, and so he's grown up in that whole system and needs to find his way out of it. And it's taken me a long time to do that. But to come into Orthodoxy is where the clarity really takes place.
Well, Father Peter just says we're all ignorant Americans anyway.
Yeah.
We just don't know. Because we didn't live in Greece for 20 years.
Okay, hold on. A new comment. This one is from Machika Maria. Let me see here, for $10. More Orthodox Christians need to be involved with the pro-life movement. As someone who has worked with the pro-life movement for 20 years, I agree with Father Boniface. Very true, and thank you so much for supporting the channel, Father Boniface. I agree completely.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Not just being involved with the pro-life, like donating, but there's a lot of crisis pregnancy centers. They might not be Orthodox, but giving opportunity for those women to have those children and to let them see the child growing within them, because a lot of these Planned Parenthoods and other organizations don't want you to see what is growing inside you. They use these very science terms like zygote and fetus, but those are just developmental stages of a child within the womb. So we just can't show that there's a baby growing in there, but we also have to support them once they give birth.
Well, pro-life clinics, they have women go through ultrasounds and they show them the baby that's in them. And almost 100% of the women who see that keep their babies.
Yeah, that's why I'm promoting it. And also we need to support them afterwards as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the Orthodox people need to kind of collect themselves and set up their convents,
but we're holding
homes for women.
Whoa, what was that?
I'm hearing some back talk there. I don't think it's me, but
Patrick's
anyway, I think
back.
that we need to start up. We need to start up because I'll tell you this: I just went through issues with the local women's ministries, and being a pro-life Orthodox priest, they don't want to hear me. I'm very again, they don't want clarity, they don't want truth, and they want me to submit to them. And so therefore, that's the way it is.
Well, now, moreover, brethren says EO is taking off in blue hair states, and that means a rainbow priest or a sheep father is right around the corner. I don't think it's it's that simple, because that's something that needs to be changed at an institutional level. There may be we lost Bishop Lazar. Hopefully, he comes back. It's not so simple as the institution itself would have to be transformed. And to that end, while it's showing increasing willingness to transform in that way, a la Rome, unfortunately, that still is, I don't think it would still be that possible. Let me see here. St. Joseph Pakayev, pray to God for us. I'm like going backwards here. Okay, guy whose name I can't read says Vatican now says it will openly allow men with homosexual tendencies to become priests as long as they remain sober.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Deep-seated attraction to okay. Well, I think that's been that way for a while.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
They just used to move them around. Now they're going to accept them openly.
All right. Well, hopefully, I don't see Bishop Lazar back yet. Hopefully, he will come back soon. Looking here, is EO and communion with GOCK? No, it's not. It's not. No. The answer to that is because we're in communion with the GOCA. So that's that's really their internal issue. Greek synods.
It's a Greek issue.
Yeah. Let me see here. Yeah. So all right, now we lost Father Boniface, or he's just in the dark there. I don't know.
I'm walking around in the dark.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't even charge my phone because I have no electric.
What happened to the
electric?
Welcome to Florida, the lightning capital of the world. So we get stuff. I think a transformer popped, and so they tried it one time and it popped again. So they haven't come around to fix it again. Maybe it's a bigger problem. I don't know.
Are you permitted to have generators on your property?
Yes. I have one, but I haven't set it up. So anyway.
Naughty father.
Oh, wait. Hold on. I think he's back. Okay. Hold on. All right. So I'm still looking for questions. Welcome back, Vladika. We were wondering what happened.
I had to chat with someone. I'm not very good at this sort of digital thing, so I ended up booting myself out. So, yeah,
It was the UGCC.
Okay, I'm still looking for questions. Now we're going on the 56th minute of the third hour, so I'm not sure how long we're going to go.
Someone did ask a question about what rite we follow here.
Oh, yeah, that was in the chat somewhere.
Yeah, in the chat. So officially, we are Western Rite, but so the divine office is Western Rite, but for the actual liturgy, I serve 5 different liturgies here. I do the Byzantine liturgy, St. John Chrysostom, with the Zhumbarak chant, which is a chant from Croatia, Serbia. And then I do the liturgy, or the Western Rite liturgy of St. Clement, which is a Balkan or ancient Western Rite liturgy, which required, 30 years of research. And then the liturgy of the Divine Synaxis of Saint Germain of Paris. That's this liturgy that Saint John Maximovich loved and served when he was in France. And then I do the Sarum liturgy, which is the Western liturgy that is done at the Abbey. And then if there is a 5th Sunday, I do the liturgy of Saint James, otherwise known as the Judean liturgy. So because I have no choir, I do all the chanting by myself, but that is my gift that I bring to the church. I'm not good at many things like apologetics, and a lot of church fathers. But my gift is chanting, liturgy, making a beautiful place for the worship. So I just wanted to explain it. So we are officially Western Rite, but I do the other Eastern rites also here.
Well, I mean, I think it's beautiful that you're preserving so much of the Orthodox patrimony in East and West. Well, we may do apologetics here, but I'd like to be competent in just one liturgy, not even 5. Hey,
let there be light.
Glory to God for all things.
Awesome.
I think it's because the bishop came back. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
thank you, Master.
Glory to God.
Glory to God. This is great.
The feast of the light of light is coming. Theophany is coming. So
Atomic Litas are the documents for the Serbian and French liturgies Vladika Lazar uses available online or in print?
That's a good question. The documents are not available online. We have, with my colleague, we've been researching for years, but I would like to publish these things. I have introduction, acknowledgements, glossaries, but I'm just not at that point yet. So right now, all I have is what I do on the live stream, which you can listen and hear, but I would really like to have these public at some point. So we're working on that. Okay.
And I highly recommend the live stream.
Sorry?
Hold on one moment.
I said I highly recommend your live streams.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I'm still trying to adjust I think the audio is good, but I received a sort of a complaint that the video should be sharper, and so my catechumen is going to stop by and try to help me with that sort of setup. But it's a tiny space, but we want to make it beautiful. We want to, be available and try to bring more. I want souls to find Christ. That's what I want. I know they're out there. I know they're there and they're searching, but I am kind of small and hidden. And so I ask all of you, please pray for us here in my little mission to bring more people in, because they are searching. They want authenticity and they're not finding it in everywhere else, but we have it and we must preserve it. And anyway, okay, I'll stop my sermon there.
And just to plug Vladika a little bit, just generically, because he said stuff to me in confidence, but I would like to say that he's a shepherd in search of the lost sheep. I can confirm that. So if you're up in his area, up outside of Niagara Falls, or if you're just visiting because you're a tourist, but you happen to be Orthodox, definitely go see him.
Yeah, Sunrise has left the chat. I will say that he did manage to tell me that in the private chat, so we are grateful to have you on, Sunrise, and you're always welcome. Let me see here. Okay, we have a super chat from Black Ortho Acolyte for $10. Thank you so much for supporting the stream. We really appreciate it, and it keeps the lights on.
I want to know what kind of job he has.
Oh,
he's dropping a lot of super chat.
I'll take him.
I just want to see if he'll hire me. I need a job.
He says, honestly, think that a papist mindset is more likely to keep someone locked into world orthodoxy regardless of heresies than a Protestant's mindset. Protestants are more concerned with God than institutions and appearance and esteem. That has actually also been my experience. That institutional issue is one that keeps a lot of papists from becoming Orthodox because they're afraid of leaving, and often it keeps people in world orthodoxy because they're already used to institutions like that. So if you mark it as an institution, it's easier to manipulate people. Someone asked how to find Elevation Monastery online. Give me a second. I will put that in the chat.
And I just want to throw out, what was that last comment before exaltation?
I should mention Vladika real quick. You might want to look at your website SSL certificate. Let me see here. He dropped Jonas in the chat.
Oh yeah, he's not encrypted.
Yes, you want to do that, but that's the website. I'm sure it'll work fine, but that needs to be. That's just a minor thing. Anyone in web knows you occasionally have to renew your SSL certificate every year. It's kind of a pain. Let me see here. Okay, classic. Let me see here.
Man, there were so many things brought up on that live stream.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But in any case, so yeah, we are now in the third minute of the fourth hour. And I don't think we're going to make it very deep into the fourth hour.
Okay.
And so because actually it's getting later. So in any case, yeah, I think that was interesting to have Patrick truly on and see his perspective. We may not agree with it, but at the same time, that was good of him to do. Sunrise asks, are there topics Redeemed Zoomer is going to cover with you? Oh boy, we haven't even. I don't know. First off, for those who are keeping score, I have 2 more discussions to do this month, and the next one is on Wednesday, where I will be talking about the papacy with Elijah Yassi, a Roman Catholic apologist, and then the week after, I will be talking to Redeemed Zoomer. I assume he wants to kind of just get to know what true Orthodoxy is, so we will see what
and they're not going to cancel, hopefully.
Yeah, Elijah's a good guy.
Yeah.
He seems to be, at least.
Jeremy says, what are the Roquefort synods today that remained Orthodox after the union with the MP? I will answer this question, but you have to keep in mind there are a couple of other Roquefort synods because remember, Roquefort was a global organization. And because of this, there are splits that occurred in even like continental lines. Or And so basically in the US, the most active Roquefort groups, and I'm saying Roquefort because even though the Free Russian Orthodox Church, the ROAC and the ARTOC are technically derived from Roquefort, they're derived technically from jurisdictions that claim Russian jurisdiction as opposed to free jurisdiction in the West. Yeah. So those would be the Roquefort under Metropolitan Agafongo, the Roquefort under Archbishop Andronic of New York, the Roquefort under Archbishop Vladimir of Sacramento. And that's going to be your Roquefort groups in America. They're not the only ones. And again, you have the ARTOC and you have the ROAC, but those are not technically Roquefort. They're Roquefort derived.
Sava might know all that, right?
Huh?
Sava would know all that, right?
Sava would know all that. And he is in ROAC yet, so he would understand those differences if someone wants to ask. Reddington asks, Ortho Bros equal diorites? There's a lot of, if they don't, there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
Black Ortho Acolyte says, I appreciate Patrick because he's trying to discern the truth versus treating the issue like a sports game where you just defend your team. Absolutely. TTC says, basically, Reddington. Sunrise says, Ortho Twitter is like a whole other world. I can agree there. It really is. Not sure what Craig said. Ortho Bros are liberal. I believe what he means is that they're so partisan that if you get to that, they're so hyper partisan that if you point to something like, say, like Elpidophorus, being pro LGBT or pro abortion, they'll suddenly be like based Elpidophorus just to cheer on their team, not realizing that they're saying something which is like demonic and stupid.
I can make it even simpler than that. Okay. They looked for Facebook World Orthodox groups to be their catechesis instead of actually getting real catechesis.
Yeah, I agree. So this is I would say, let me see what else we've got here in the stream. One day we'll do the ballad of the sad ortho bro. Maybe that'll become the
we need to make some music here.
That'll become the
outro
theme song. Yeah, the outro is
I'll volunteer my guitar.
The ballad of the sad ortho bro. But anyway, okay, so I'm looking. Okay, stuff about Jay Dyer, we all know. Yeah, he's afraid. We know. Past that, I think we answered a lot of those. There was a lot of side commentary, which is great. I love the conversation in the chat, even if it does occasionally make it more difficult for me to follow. But when we have a guest like we did, it was going to get lost. Did anyone here have anything to address? I know, Ladika Lazar, you have a channel on YouTube. It's on my homepage, in the recommended channels, as does Unseen Warfare. Reader John, does anyone want to talk about their projects or what they're doing before we go?
I will be gearing up to catechize online. I mean, I've got people all over the state of Florida.
Oh, wow.
And that's the only solution that I have, is to go online. And so I'm going to be using the catechism that we print with Lulu Press. And so I just ask for prayers, and then I got to do it. I got to get moving on it amidst of all my other busyness. So anyway, so that's what I'm looking at. So that's a project that I have to do. The sooner the better.
Glory to God. Okay. Well, that's great.
I do some readings on my channel. I've been going through a couple texts that I think are kind of important, and I'm going to be reading about the Royal Path coming up soon. So, yeah, if you want to stop by, that'd be cool. Anybody that's interested.
Yep. Also on my channel there, on my channel feed. Reader John, anything you're doing lately these days, or you just came back from the hospital? Get to work.
I'm not dying today. Well, I'm dying in a different way, but I'm that anointed reader that shows up on NFTU News and Apologetics, who could really use your support. Yeah, and who could really use your support. And I just provide a little bit of amusement, I hope, for Father Joseph. You notice he chuckles quite a bit when I get on, because I'm kind of crazy. But
Romo Gato just donated, and thank you for your support of the channel with $10 with what appears to be a yellow triangle. Thank you. We appreciate your support of the stream.
And I like to help fundraise for him too, because I know it's not easy being a priest and having a ministry online. So
no, it's a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah.
I consider myself really blessed and fortunate, but it's not easy. I will say that. Some days it's scary.
Yeah.
But glory to God, it's worked out the way it has, and I really feel there's a purpose to this, even if I can't figure out what that is.
And I'd like to throw out that I'm very appreciative that you're open and transparent, and you let anybody on, unlike other channels. And that you're not out. You're not one of those priests that get on here trying to run a hustle and try and get some money. You actually just need to support yourself and your family, and bring the light of the gospel.
Oh, that was a cool mix there. Okay,
yeah,
I appreciate that.
And
I do ask for money. I'm not going to lie, but we do actually need.
Well, yeah, but you're not trying to. You're not like some World Orthodox priest that I know.
I'm not gonna judge them. I don't know what their deal is or how much they make or anything like that. EJ says, because of this stream, I learned about Orthodoxy and found Father Boniface. So thank you. Glory to God.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say that the people that I'm working with have all, found, most of them have found me through the podcast here. So, the Lord's using it great. And I say, Vladika Lazar, pray the same thing happens with him. It's just this thing be used to draw people into his realm, his area there.
And call ahead before you visit.
CTC gives a cross. Taylor Harden says, yeah, me too. Wicked Wally says, this isn't world grifting. This is true grifting. This is the legit grift.
Father Joseph is not a grifter.
The genuine grift. Oh, Sunrise with $9.99. Use this money to open a factory to produce NFT lights.
We're going to need a little more than that, folks. Come on.
Yeah, $10 is not going to do it. I know that you can open. Father Antonio says not trying to sell supplements. I don't know. I mean, should I?
Yeah.
No one would believe my health is that great. I'm sorry.
We need to get some sorghum on here, Father.
Anita Dalton asks, is Road Court communion with the GOC? Some there are continuing Road Court churches that are in communion with the GOC, yes. Isaac gives a heart. He's a member. Reddington says ROFOMAO. And Black Orthodox says if every true Orthodox parish does an online catechism, they will go quickly, in my opinion. People simply do not have access. We're working on it. If people see me going from left to right, this is a dog toy. I'm just tossing toys to the dog, for those that don't know. Rocore A is in communion with the GOCK.
He's counting his piles of money. Just kidding.
He needs to promote an Orthodox Mediterranean food supplements. That's what he needs to do.
Are you open to Patreon, Father?
I haven't yet. I think in theory I could. I think
they take less of a cut than YouTube, and you could do like private, or you could do like members only live streams and stuff.
I was thinking about that, and I've tried to do the members only live stream. I may try that again this year, but it has been a little bit on the crazy side. So Jeremy asks, is Rocore A, Agafangal, or Andronic? For all intents and purposes, the answer is yes, even though they are separate groups. They're not in communion with each other. They both recognize the GOC, and it seems like that's mutual. So I don't know how long that split's going to last. Also, the Rocore Andronic recognizes the Serbian True Orthodox Church. So there's a lot of
autonomy. Do the Russian Senate still have the issue about the name worshiping?
No,
that's a history thing. Okay.
Yeah, Jeremy says, Atomic Lead says, I volunteer with OrthoMed Foods.
Someone just came out and left the RTOC, I think, and what he was saying was that they were supporting Putin or something. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Unfortunately, this is the case with any of the Russian churches, including the ones in our communion. If you are a loyal, patriotic Russian, not necessarily you're supporting soldiers, sending stuff for the war effort, all of a sudden you're a Putinite. I think it's really insane and unfair.
The issue.
Yeah, it's really it's unfair. So my guess is that Artok is not Putinite. They've dealt with their own share of persecution from the state.
I just think they're patriotic.
Yeah, it's one thing to be patriotic, and it's another thing to be, a Putin stooge. So I think they're just patriots.
Right. So I'll send you a text of what I'm talking about, because it does seem it's a bit confusing what this priest that's leaving them is talking about, or bishop or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you can send it to me. I'll look at it.
Okay.
But in any case, okay, in that case, let's see. Sunrise says NFT college campus debate live. It's been considered. I mean, I live near some college campuses, but I probably wouldn't do it. Literally, hold on.
You would literally do a mic drop, and you'd have to pay for it.
And Vladika Lazar, I know you mentioned services, and you have the YouTube channel. What have you been doing lately, or what projects are you looking at?
When I find a piece of chant that I like, or I see its exposure, I will create a YouTube video of it. I don't know if folks know this, but at Jordanville I was one of the main choir directors, so I have a lot of experience there. And it just by default I became the lead choir director there until I asked to leave. So again, that is my background, and I am working on something else. Actually, the work was done a long time ago. I just have not produced it, and that is I prepared scripts and with maps and resources and citations for the Glagolithic liturgy, which was a liturgy that existed at the time of when the Saint Naum and Saint Clement of Ohrid were evangelizing the Balkans. The Glagolithic alphabet was replaced by the Cyrillic alphabet, but it was the original alphabet that Saint Cyril Methodius created for the Slavs.
Yeah.
Along with that, there was a liturgy, and so I created an entire series on the history of this and how it developed, how it was influenced by Byzantium, but it essentially is a Western rite. So, but it's all on the hard drive of the computer. I just haven't got around to creating the actual videos. It's all there. My catechumen keeps saying to me, you've got to do it. And I said, I know. And so that is in the works. I've just got to sit down, and I'm not really an expert with computer things. He says he's going to help me. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I can just talk, but then I need, in the background, I need like a map appearing by the side of my head as I talk about it, or I need the diagram. And I created, how can I say?
Like an overlay.
Yeah, an overlay would help, yeah.
Overlay, that's the thing. I don't know how to do that. And so that's what's keeping me behind. So for example, the Western liturgy, its components, the liturgy of the Eastern, its components, so for example, the Western liturgy has no cherubic hymn, for example, but it has something else, that sort of thing. So I made a chart and a diagrams, all those things. So it's quite in depth, but again, it's in the works. I haven't got to that point yet. So anyway, but that's what I'm hoping to do someday. So
okay, well, glory to God.
I look forward to that.
Yeah,
being Western
definitely.
Rite, I look forward to that. I mean, I would look forward to that for sure.
Okay. Yeah,
Was it?
Does anyone know Father David Belden in Toronto?
I met him once or twice.
So I drove up to Toronto with my catechumen, and I had lunch together. And so Father David is a wonderful person, a wonderful, wonderful shepherd. He's been a priest for over 50 years. And I think he was recently interviewed by
St. Photios, yeah.
Yes, Tea Time in the Seminary. Now, who are they, by the way?
St. Photios Orthodox Theological Seminary is the main continental seminary for the GOC Kalinikos. They're in where Etna, California was, but it's a full-size seminary, huge. And they offer like a 4-year program, I believe.
Yeah. There's Metropolitan Chrysostomus' baby.
Yep. And I think Bishop Auxentius is basically like the dean or the rector. I'm not sure how that works. Wicked Wally says, under the genuine old calendar grift, you still have time to send beloved Christmas gifts. Super chats that are fashionably late. Okay, I'm not sure if that was a joke or some kind of like haiku or something. Like, I mean, it was pretty cool either way. It did
very poetic.
Very poetic. Yeah, it was. You were a poet and you did not even know it. Let me see here.
I don't know why Wally's so wicked though.
Yeah, we think he's nice. Elevation Monastery says thank you to a Hagen. Okay, all right. Well, in that case, folks, I think I'm going to end the stream here, and I'd like to first say thank you to all of our guests. Whether if you were here for our chat here, like some of our regulars, like Reader John or Father Boniface or MC Warfare, Vadika Lazar was here, so I want to say thank you. Sunrise, I'd like to say thank you as well. Even Patrick Craig Trulia, who was gracious enough to come on to have more discussion on the what's the word I'm looking for? On the thing we did on Friday, that debate, discussion, disaster. Yes. Final question here. Oh, Wicked Wally I'm from New England. It's a common term of endearment here. That's right. Everything's wicked over there. It's wicked foul, wicked tasty, wicked.
It's wicked.
Anyway, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's see here. So Totally knows she's an awesome person. I go to Blackworth the Acolyte says, would Elevation Monastery be willing to release a video of how he chant Typica? A lot of people are interested in seeing video demonstrations of Typica, so they do Typica right. So this is one of the things that a lot of people have been asking for, probably I'd say since the beginning of this channel. And we've done private ones and we've done other ones, but people just really like, I guess, seeing Typica being done. Okay, so that's answered. All right, well,
Vladica do a great job with that.
Glorify and Matushka and Blackworth Acolyte says, please and thank you. We'll see 2025. It's January and it's already started out real interesting. So once again, to those who had questions and had comments, and apologies if I missed questions and comments, because I know I missed at least a couple of hundred. And to those who support our mission, Support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net, on GiveSendGo, or on Odyssey. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. And as always, if this was helpful to you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Through the prayers of Holy Fathers, I'll let Ladika.
Through the prayers of Holy Father, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon us and save us.
Amen.
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 Have a good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.